It turns out it's more than useful. You can save your country that way. And so they're not alone. They're getting support, and that support is important. But really, predominantly, it's Ukrainians on the cyber battlefield, and their skills have been very impressive. They've been preparing for this for a number of years, and they have a whole army of young people on the cyber side. It's their civilian population. These are not people conscripted into the military or volunteering, wearing uniforms. And so even in cyber warfare, the Ukrainians have been extremely impressive. And so let's remember that all of these aspects of warfare, whether it's how far your cruise missiles go and how accurate they are, what size your cyber capabilities are, it's really ultimately about those people. It's about the human capital, right? It's about their willingness, their skill level, but also their willingness to fight and to put their lives on the line. And there's no substitute for that. And so what's called morale or courage or bravery or valor, that's really ultimately decisive, provided you have enough sufficient arms, right, to conduct the fight. And if you don't, you use a Molotov cocktail. And grandma calls in the coordinates of the Russian tank on her iPhone, and you have a Molotov cocktail that the people who used to work in the cafeteria are now stuffing flammable liquid into bottles. And you carry one right up to the tank and you smash it against the tank or you drop it in one of the hatches in the tank. Right? There's no substitute for that kind of stuff. That level of resolve, willingness to die for your country. That's a really big lesson that we need to absorb in our own country. We've been going to war more frequently than we should. And like you said, without the justification all the time. And then like Henry Kissinger said, without understanding how this was going to end. It's easy to start a war. It's very difficult to win a war, prevail, and end a war on terms that meet your original expectations. Right? We've been fighting wars, but we haven't been fighting wars as society. We've been fighting wars as a small sliver of our population. Something like 1% of our population is involved with the military because we have an all-volunteer force. And that means that it's easier for our politicians to go to war because they don't face conscription. They don't have a draft, which affects every family in the country. And because the number of people in the volunteer force is such a narrow stratum of the population. And so they've been getting away with this because the professional army is much better than the conscript army. And an all-volunteer force is much preferable from a military point of view. But from a societal point of view,
look at this athleticism. Really pretty unprecedented. I know of precedents that have been set, and this is really unprecedented athleticism. The potential six-star, bro. This shit sucks. That one. So fucking sucks. Oh man, my foot was wet.
That's kind of nice. I'll take that. What's the value? What's the hope of the power of conversation? If you could sit down with Vladimir Putin and have a conversation versus bullets.
Versus the West Side gangsters. This motherfucker started barking at us.
What would you talk about? What would you ask? Well, Henry Kissinger, you alluded to his op-ed. He's had many private meetings with President Putin over a long time. And President Biden, previous presidents, secretaries of state, officials below Secretary of State, the head of the CIA evidently met with President Putin in the fall when he was massing the troops on the border before he invaded. and we sent the head of the CIA, and Putin received him, somebody he evidently respects or was at least willing to meet, unlike other members of the administration. So a lot of people are talking to him in some form or another for the 22 years he's been in power. And I'm not sure it's at what I call their desired effect.
Well, the nature of the conversation is interesting too, and also the timing, which is post February 22nd, is a different time. And also another aspect, which Oliver Stone mentioned, interestingly, that there's something about COVID and the pandemic that creates isolation, distancing. It's such a silly little nuanced thing, but maybe it's actually has a profound impact on the human being, the human mind of Vladimir Putin. That there is something about an in-person meeting, not across a table that's far too large, but so the intimacy of like one truly human in-person conversation. That there's something distinctly powerful about that reminder that, as he says in the narrative and propaganda, that we're all one people. There is truth to that. That this is kind of humanity is one people, and you're kind of reminded by that when you're sitting together.
People who have sat across the table from him, whether at 30 yards or at 3, have remarked upon this feeling of isolation that has affected him, the pandemic. I think there must be something to that if several people have been in him or remarked. Everybody that I know and I've been able to talk to who's had a meeting with him in the past 10 years, including Henry Kissinger, the former Secretary of State, has said that Putin spends a lot of time enumerating his grievances. He goes through a monologue of his grievances. And then the West did this, and then the West lied to us about that, and then the West cheated us on this. And so it's not the conversation that you're encouraging of common humanity. It's that roiling resentment volcano that's just exploding in control. And by the time he gets through the monologue of the grievances, the time the meeting is expired or overtime,
That's a brilliant statement. That's what it's doing. Like when you're facing a bull, the red claw, you have to learn how to avoid the long list of grievances and get to the humanity. That's a really important
it's a
skill.
skill. For sure, it's a skill, and it's the highest level skill of a diplomat. To be able to reach some type of common understanding when interests and worldviews clash so much. But here's your challenge. Your challenge is Russia wants to impose a closed sphere of influence on its neighbors. It wants to dictate what its neighbors can and can't do. It wants to exert influence not by the power of its example, not by the freedom of its people, not by the dynamism of its diversified economy, but it wants to exert influence just because it deserves it, just because it's a great power, just because, and on and on and on. It's a civilization unto itself. And it wants that, and we can't give it. The reason that Russia was not integrated into the West was not for lack of effort. It was because Russia ultimately spurned the integration because it was about what terms the integration would come. Would you come into the West and observe Western rules and be another country, meaning just another country? There's Poland, Austria, and there's little tiny Monaco, and there's Russia. And you're just one of those countries. And Russia's answer to that was no. We're not just one of those countries. We need special rules. We need special conditions conditions. We'll integrate, but only as a special country, meaning like at the UN, where all countries are sovereign, all countries are members, but Russia has a veto on what countries can and can't do. Those were the terms on which they were willing to integrate. And those were the terms that no leader of a Western country or the United States or the G7 or can grant with the White. It's very well known that Vladimir Putin was one of the first, maybe the first leader finally to call President Bush after the 9/11. They didn't connect right away. President Bush was not in Washington, but eventually they did speak. He condemned the terrorist attack, Russian support, which he delivered on, the use of some Russian logistics for Afghanistan operation. And a lot of people point to that and say there it is. Russia wanted to cooperate, did cooperate, and we spurned it. Or we failed to appreciate Russia's cooperation. And so therefore, Russia was cheating, or Russia was lying, Russia's grievances are legitimate. But here's the problem with that argument. In exchange for that support, Vladimir asked in return from President Bush for a free hand in the former Soviet space. That closed hierarchical sphere where Russia would exert influence coercively over countries that were sovereign. And no American president could grant that, and President Bush was right. He said no. And so the attempted cooperation blew up. But who's at fault there? Should there be a non-voluntary sphere of influence? Should that be granted? Or should we face up to attempts to do that? Let's take a little detour here into China. China had this brilliant grand strategy. It was, sure, America is hostile because America is hegemonic, America wants to control the world, America will never let China rise, America will do everything it can to hold China down. So we're going to have hostility from America. We don't want to decouple because we lose that high-end technology transfer. Either we buy it or we steal it. America and the rest of the West has all the technology that we need. We have some of it domestically, more than before by a lot, but we're still dependent, so we can't decouple. So we'll have the hostility, but they'll be aligned, we'll cross, just so that we don't lose the technology. Till made in China 2035 is accomplished, and we're self-sufficient domestically in AI and every other area that's critical. But hostility, well, we have an ace in the hole. Our ace in the hole is Europe. Europe is conflict. They're all about trade. It doesn't matter how evil you are. They love to trade because Rothschild changed through trade. They have this illusion that you're going to become a better country if they trade with you. And you won't have conflict, war, and hostility if you trade. And so we have this European ace in the hole. We're hostile with the Americans. We're still buying, we're stealing their technology. And better than that even, the Europeans are not hostile to us at all. They love to trade with us, and they want to trade more, and they're our biggest trading partner already. And lo and behold, Xi Jinping sides with Vladimir Putin in the aggression in Ukraine. He doesn't side with him providing military equipment. He doesn't provide technology transfer, but he provides public support and massive pro-Russian propaganda to the whole Chinese population. And the Europeans say, wait a minute, this is an invasion of a sovereign country in Europe. What do you mean? You're not condemning Vladimir Putin's invasion. And so that wedge that the Chinese had, that was the basis of their grand strategy, that wedge between the U.S. and Europe when it came to China policy, that wedge is gone. Xi Jinping destroyed it. And the Europeans and the Americans are coming close together on Ukraine and Russia policy for sure, but also more and more on China policy. And so that was a pretty big sacrifice for the Chinese leader to make. And what did he get in return? He gets hydrocarbons from Russia at reduced prices. And the Chinese get hydrocarbons from a lot of countries. They have a completely diverse supply chain for their energy.
So what do you think Xi Jinping is thinking now? Was it a mistake? Or
I'd like to know. I'd like you to be able to sit down with him across from this table here on your podcast
This
and
what
pose
is this?
that same question because we have no idea.
No one's ever.
scholar
The sixth
ever break through the language barrier to China? Not ever, I apologize, in the next few years, because there is a gigantic cultural and language barrier between the West and the China.
China's a great civilization. China predates the United States by millennia. China's accomplishments are breathtaking, but China's also led by, let's be honest, a Communist Party monopoly, which engages in a lot of criminal behavior. Tibet is Ukraine. Xinjiang is Ukraine. Hong Kong is Ukraine. Let alone support for Putin. This is before we even discussed Taiwan. And so now the Europeans are coming to see this, and the Americans are coming to understand this, that maybe trading with a regime like that, and morally, politically, criminally, Tibet, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, so how is that different from what Putin is doing in Ukraine? I'd be hard-pressed to differentiate that ultimately, even though the analogies are not exact. And so the Chinese, it's like that guy Leon, the author of Nicoletia, the great memoir of the late Soviet period, the end of the Soviet Union. You know that they spend all this time and all these resources blackening our image. We supply them with endless material to blacken our image. That's where Xi Jinping's regime is. And so they have a big dilemma on their side. It's a Western world, and they've united the Western world. And we have woken the rest of the world to the fact that China is a threat to the values, the institutions and values of the West. And that trade is not transforming China, quite the opposite. We'll see if this endures. Maybe it doesn't endure. Maybe it's a fleeting moment. Maybe this is not an inflection point. Maybe the war in Ukraine ends more quickly than we think. Maybe, like you said, the Chinese and the Indians and the rest of them, the leaders there, they get their wish that it ends. The world moves on and forgets. And says, let's try again and resume our mutual understanding, our mutually beneficial trade. Maybe it's a passing phase. We can't exclude that. I'm very for it in the future. But the moment is not a good one for the Chinese regime, let alone the fact that he's trying to impose an unprecedented, in the modern era, third term for himself as president in the fall at the next party Congress, becoming president for life, de facto, a Mao-like figure. And he's now got to do that in this environment where he has damaged Chinese grand strategy and damaged the reputation of China and its relationships across the world. Maybe not permanently, but significantly. In addition to the problems they have at home, democracy, as you know, middle income trap, and then the regulatory insanity of Chinese communist rule that we've seen with the tech companies that you know well, where they destroyed all that value, with the blow up of their property sector because it was a massive bubble, and that's still playing out. And this time it's the same. Meaning this time it's not different. when it comes to a property blowout, it has enormous effects on middle class balance sheets and their ability to remain consumers, drive the economy, which is the model that they have. So he's got a litany of challenges independent of the fact that he sided with his pal, Vladimir Putin, and their bromance is costing China very, very significantly.
If you close your eyes and 100 years ago, 1922, and you think about the future, I wonder if you can hear the drums of war, predicting the 30s, predicting the Great Depression and the resentment that builds, the economic resentment, the cultural resentment, the geopolitical resentment that builds and leads to World War II. It, at least to me, when I close my eyes, I can hear the drums of war that are still ahead of us. And it's possible that we're there. 2022 will materialize in a similar way as did 1922.
I have my eyes closed, like, and I sure hope that that's not what happened. But I'm looking at 1922, the epoch I know well, and I don't see the future that unfolds. I would not have predicted it had I come out of that. I see the war behind us. I see a prosperity on the horizon. Yes, inflation in Germany and so many other difficult issues, but there are more democracies now than there were before the war, and the old empires are gone. And there's a cultural fluorescence, there's modernism in the arts, and there's women entering the public sphere, there's all the testing technology like automobiles. I'm looking at the future of 1922, and I'm not seeing the Great Depression, and I'm not seeing World War II, and I'm not seeing the Holocaust, because I don't predict the future. Nobody in 1922 could see that future, although I guess there were some clairvoyants who predicted it.
But you're not one of them.
I'm not one of them, but this is what I know from studying history. What I know is stuff happens. In other words, like, we're watching Ukraine war right now, and all of our attention is focused on it. And it's like the economists say, when their powerful models are employed, and there's this line that says, all other factors constant,
looking to see how much we've grown, and the only one you get in the machine.
analysis. And the whole game is all other factors help. So the Russia-Ukraine war that we've been discussing, and this could happen, and that could happen, but you know what? Stuff could happen. For example, the Israeli government could decide this summer that it's going to bomb Iran, because no Israeli government will tolerate Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. And since President Trump unilaterally exited from the multi-power nuclear agreement, Iran is now much closer to the bomb than they were when they were still in, where the United States was still in that agreement. And you tell me the Israeli government that says, sure, it's fine, it's okay if Iran can get it. And so maybe that happens. And maybe that happens as early as this summer, as Iran gets closer and closer and closer. Maybe that guy in North Korea decides it's his time, just like his grandfather, right, in 1950, decided it's time, we're going to, quote, reunify on the Korean Peninsula. Maybe, I don't know, fill in the blank. Something's going to happen. It's not going to be what I predict. It's not going to be what I'm watching. It's going to be obvious only after it happens, not before. And then it's going to upend the table. And all of a sudden,
Everything changes.
we're going to be in a different environment, different circumstances. And is Ukraine still as central at that point as it seems to be right now? I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask two some people are saying the pressure is building. It's going to be overthrown or stepped down again this year. And some people say surely he's going to outlast Stalin.
No evidence of a coup yet. None whatsoever yet. He's pretty much at life expectancy for a Russian male. Those are bad numbers. He's 69, 70. So he's lived the life of a Russian male already, but he's got better documents than the majority of the Russian males in that, let's say, comparison set. So he could live a very long time with good documents. So there could be a coup at some point, but there's none today in evidence. He could go because he's reached the life expectancy, or he could stay for a long time. The thing to watch about this is an organization that nobody pays attention to, the FSO, the Federal Guard, which is the Praetorian Guard, the self-standing bodyguard directorate, the only organization in Russia that has any access to it. We've seen no disloyalty, no breaking of ranks, no defections, nothing in the public realm from open sources about any divisions or problems in the FSO in the Praetorian Guard. So if you can't break that, change that, illicit defections there, you can't overturn it. Authoritarian regimes like they're terrible. They fail at everything. They can't feed their people. They have trouble achieving any goals. They only have to be good, however, at one thing. They only have to be good at the complete suppression of political alternatives. If you can suppress political alternatives, you can fail at everything else, but you could survive as an authoritarian. So you watch Navalny.
That's question number two.
Okay,
My question number
two.
that's my second rapid fire question. What happens to Navalny? What are the possible conclusions of who you said quite possibly the second most influential powerful figure in Russia? Is he going to die? Is he going to be in jail? Will he become the next president of Russia? Well, what are the possible?
I wish I knew. I've been surprised that he's still alive. I've been worried that he will be killed in prison in a staged fight. Some security officer, prison guard, puts on a prison outfit, takes a lead pipe, goes into the cell, they have a full fight. Well, I've been afraid of that, but he's still alive, even though he's serving a long sentence. So that leads me to guess that people inside the Putin regime, and maybe President Putin himself, understand that Navalny is their ticket to lift sanctions. That Navalny is even more popular outside of Russia than inside of Russia. He's the leader in many ways of the political opposition in the country, even while still in prison. His organization's been destroyed, but he doesn't have majority support in the population by any stretch of the imagination. But he's a big figure in the West, including here in the U.S. And so Navalny could be their ticket, their kind of get out of jail card. Meaning they release him from prison, he gets appointed, I don't know, prime minister even by the Putin regime, if he were willing to accept such a position. I have my doubts about that. And then that's how they lobby to remove the sanctions against him. So he's a card that President Putin could play. And so maybe that's the reason he's still alive, or maybe there are other reasons that we don't know. And so some alternative to Putin is more likely to arise inside his gang, Shaika, as they say, right inside his gang, where they tire of his mistakes, they tire of his self-defeating actions, and they say patriotically for Russia, we need something move against this guy because he's hurting our country and also because I can do better. I'm ambitious as well as patriotic. But once again, the problem there, Lex, is Putin is surrounded by this cocoon known as the FSO. He meets on Zoom predominantly with the rest of the government, including with defense and security officials. They don't have frequent access to his person. And as you alluded earlier to the pandemic, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks before every meeting. And moreover, like they don't know where he is. You see, when they're on Zoom with him, and it's the Valda. His office in the Valda region looks the same as his office in Sochi, or his office outside of Moscow in Novorossiysk. They're made up to look very similar on Zoom. And sure, some signs are looking where it is, but maybe they don't know. And so you're going to move on him. You're going to jump in his Kremlin, out his dacha, outside Moscow. And it turns out he's in Sochi, and vice versa. And it turns out the FSO is loyal to him and will let you anyway. So, Lex, we don't know, but we watch this FSO really closely, and we think that the elites, if not Putin, but maybe to understand Navalny, as a really big potential political card that they could play.
And one last question, the biggest question. You studied some of the darkest aspects of human history, human nature, and you ask the why question. What are we doing here? What's the meaning of our existence, our life? What are we humans trying to get at?
I can't answer that question either, but I can say that having a purposeful life is actually not that hard. You're not Gandhi, you're not President Roosevelt, you're not going to transform a country or a civilization and become immortal because of your courage and your genius critical moment. But you live in an environment, you're in a school, you're in a workplace, you're somewhere where you can affect other people in a positive way. It can be not just about yourself, but it can be about them.
New York, as it turns out,
You
is
can
very
have a positive impact on other people's lives
I thought
through
about
the work that you do,
but
whether
Michael
that's your
offered to
employment, or
part-time
your charity,
job.
your spare time, your work time.
Hey,
It can be by modeling proper behavior, admitting your mistakes, hard to do but necessary, remembering that you don't know everything, you can't predict the future, but you don't even know everything in your areas of expertise. Painfully reminded of that humility at times, but remind yourself too. So you can lead a life that can show others what good values are, and you can lead a life that dedicates yourself not only to your own material well-being, but to the well-being and the development of others around you. And it can be on a humble scale. It can be in a small classroom or a small workplace, a small work team. But it can be done, and you can be reminded that having a positive impact, even on one other person, gives far greater meaning to your own life. And it's profoundly satisfying, much more satisfying than the attention you might get, let's say, on social media, or awards you might receive. There's nothing wrong with pursuing those. All people pursue them. It's a free society. But leading a purposeful life intentionally is possible.
Even just one person, I love the expression, save one life, save the world. Just focusing on the local, on the tiny little difference you can make in the world, somehow ripple.
Every day. Think about that every single day. Right? You're a better person. You're a better society.
And maybe you get to add a bit of love to the world after all. Stephen, this is a huge honor for many reasons. One of which is I could just tell how much care you put into this conversation and how much, I use the word love a lot, but I just feel the love and just even the respect you give me, which I can't tell you how energizing it is, how much that gives me strength for my own cellular pursuits. Um, Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for not just talking today, but I give you so much respect just with everything you're doing, and I really appreciate that. It makes me feel special. So thank you so much for sitting down and talking.
Mutual, Lex. Thank you as well, and thank you for the respect you've shown me. These are really difficult issues that don't have simple answers, but that doesn't mean we give up. We have to keep thinking and learning and trying and finding solutions in everything we do, including these big global tragedies that we live through. And it's heartbreaking what's going on. It just breaks my heart every day. A person who studies this has been studying this for decades, and it keeps happening. And you think again, and yes, it is again, but we still have to keep trying, and we have to be inspired by those people who are more courageous than we are and sacrifice more than we sacrifice. For me, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, is experienced in my study at home and in my office in Princeton, my coming office at Stanford when I moved full time to Stanford in September. Or it's experienced far away in safety and in comfort. And we have to remember that too when we talk about these things, when we answer the questions. Right? That as we speak and as we comment and think we're experts on these things from the comfort of our existence, that there are people in those tragedies right now
With no power, with no food, with full uncertainty about the future of the health of their children. And I've also seen the family in both places.
Makes every
Homes
game very
that
interesting
were
because
buildings that
they
were
all
preserved for generations
can have effects
now in rubble.
on the league.
So
yes, it hurts.
I highly recommend it.
But it's Syria, where 350,000 at least by UN estimates died, and Russia participated in that. And it's Yemen, and it's so many other places that don't have the same degree of attention that a European country like Ukraine has. But yeah, we have to remember also that in addition to Ukraine, and then there's things right home here in New York City where children are without food. It's just inexcusable in a country this rich.
So we shouldn't forget in our study of leaders and our study of geopolitics that ultimately it's about the humanity. It's
Yes.
particular being.
Okay, let's
Thank you so much.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Amazing conversation. Talk to you again.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the conversation with Stephen Cotton. Support this podcast. Please check out our sponsors.
I don't think that fantasy football falls under the same legalities.
Not despair. Remember, y'all through history live truth and love. There have been tyrants and murderers. For time, they continue to expand. And in the end, it's always fall. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you.
Make it really simple. Is fantasy football legal in Florida?
Okay, and anybody that money was borrowed from, they would get it back, maybe tenfold. And so it was this weird situation of having like one foot in his reality and potentially believing the things he was saying, or even over time wanting to believe them more and more because the alternative was worse. The alternative was
According to ChatGPT, Colin,
was
it
increasingly a
seems
bigger and
that
bigger nightmare.
fantasy football is legal in Florida.
Following our conversation with Sarva Gallus. chef, restaurateur, who was the subject of a Netflix documentary about Spain, fraud, and fugitives. The document, the rise and fall of the vegan raw food restaurants in New York City, that ended in what she called a road trip from hell, being arrested in Tennessee, for pleading guilty for stealing over $2 million and serving 4 months at Rikers Island jail. Sarma disputes the veracity of the documentary and its conclusion, saying that she was misrepresented. So, I wanted to talk to her to get the full story, to seek understanding of who she is as a human being, the good, the bad. This is the Let's Weekly podcast, supported. Please check out our sponsors.
How's everyone doing?
And now,
My door
here's
is
Sama
open if anyone wants
Rakalis.
to talk.
You said that you did a lot of reading when you were growing up, and you mentioned Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. So, from the reading you've done in those early days, how did you see the world? Was it to you a beautiful place or a cruel place?
I don't think I thought about the world.
You were focused on family, basic day-to-day life.
I think I was focused on day to day. I had an awareness of not fitting in, but I think back then it felt like something was wrong versus some people are just that way. And speaking of books, I read a book called Party of One.
Can you use sports betting apps in Florida?
That somebody gave me. And
Keep it simple.
And that helped a lot. That was one book that made me feel like it made me understand the apps that I hadn't understood before, specifically kind of feeling out of place, even my family, where you're not supposed to be out of place.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I saw it, but I think you mentioned that you were a bit of a loner. And I also think I saw somewhere pictures of you with green hair in high school. And wow, the haircut. What's that about? Is that real? Am I just imagining?
No, you're not imagining it. It's strange because I was kind of a loner. So it'd be strange to do something that calls too much attention to yourself. Back then, I grew up in a suburb of Boston, and anybody that was there around that time probably said, that girl with green hair, blue hair, most of the time. They would remember, like, seeing me walking down the street.
When did this become legal?
Especially back then. Now it wouldn't stand out so much, but back then it really stood out. So I was trying to think about why I did that when I was kind of shy, and on the one hand didn't want to bring attention to myself, but I did something that did. And it wasn't, my family, to their credit, they were fine with it, so it wasn't a rebellion against them or anything like that. They were fine with it. I don't think they loved it, but
Your dad was a physicist at MIT.
yes.
So, he was cool here with your green hair. That's just the way it was.
He was fine with the green hair, but I think in some ways maybe they had to be fine with it because I caused problems otherwise. I got good grades.
It was right around the time things seemed to change.
Hunter S. Thompson wrote a lot of good stuff. He has a lot of really good quotes, a lot of good lines. So, one of the ones I love is, life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely and bringing a well-preserved body, but rather to skidding broadside in cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, thoroughly worn out, and loudly complaining, wow, ride.
Does anyone here play fantasy football? Question mark.
Like the place.
If so, comma, how did your squad do this year? Question mark.
I think he followed it, right? Somewhere, like, continue the day. And it was kind of astonishing. It's funny, when I was in college, there were always really interesting people coming to speakers and whatnot, and I tended to not go to events and whatnot, but in the 4 years I was there, really interesting people came through and gave talks. I don't know, a lot of famous people. But then one day, and only when I attended, it was the only interesting person who came to speak on campus that I attended.
That is unfortunate. Period.
And we had a
represents a throat, the boldness, the fearlessness, the wildness, all that kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that here for a little bit too. Funny enough, there's like an echo. Obviously, he either played or started hung out together. It just seems to somehow the universe lies in these two individuals.
I chose.
They're both madmen in different kind of ways. So you also told me that Leon the Professional is one of your favorite films. It's also the reason you named the dog Leon. So, what do you find beautiful and powerful about this film?
I've watched it enough times, but it's been a while since I've watched it.
So for people who haven't watched it, this guy, Leon, played by John Reno, there's a young girl, 13, 14, Matilda, played by Natalie Portman, and she's abused, she's really hard life, parents are murdered, and then she finds protection under this fellow, Leon, who also happens to be a professional assassin. And he's also kind of a Forrest Gump type character. He's really simple.
Yeah.
He seems to be like the immature one, or like rather the one who's young. She seems to have a wisdom far beyond her age because of the hard life she has to live through. And then they're here huddling together from the cruelty of the world, and then finding a connection.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films where there's so many interesting things about it, but I'm sure one of them is just a contradiction of him being a caring person and reluctant to get attached to her. He tries to think he knows he's very reluctant to get attached to her in the beginning.
We will talk about anything you wish.
So you
see what would you like to talk about?
So that's interesting, and I think probably a psychoanalyst would have a field day with why I like that movie so much. And I haven't gone there myself, but there's something I think about even in the brief part that depicts her in the beginning, it seems clear that she's sort of out of place in her family. And then, there's all kinds of interesting things about their relationship along the way.
This is absolutely hilarious. You made me laugh out loud.
That bothered me. Or bothered me the fact that I haven't really thought about it before. For people who haven't watched the movie, here's a young underage girl who kind of comes onto him. First of all, I think she actually just doesn't know what female love is. So this is the only way she knows how to express love. That's one. And two is, a lot of bad people in this world who take advantage of that, right? And the fact that she finally met a human being who doesn't, and is just there to protect her. That's a real sort of, a powerful statement of what it means to be sort of like a father figure, I suppose, a protector. That to me, I love the idea of being a protector. That there's something like something worthwhile that's worth protecting amidst all the cruelty. That's a beautiful kind of. You're basically saving this young human's, or you're repairing this young human's path to love, real love in life. Because that idea of love is destroyed for her. Just family, everything is sort of everything around her is broken, and he's kind of repairing it by reestablishing what that kind of love can be. I don't know.
And the plant. They say the plant.
The University of South Carolina, question mark?
The simplicity of the film, just from the cinematic perspective, is beautiful. The music, the way it looks, the minimalism.
Even the violence is beautiful.
Yeah, violence. It was over the top, and also the bad cop, played by Gary Oldman.
Yeah, he was amazing.
stream 24/7 for world peace.
Yeah, it's interesting because I turn away from violence or films usually, but not violence or TV or anything that has that element to it, except in certain cases where,
Where the violence is beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Or did you see the movie True Romance?
Yes.
That's my second favorite movie.
That's probably my favorite.
Oh, well, that's my second favorite movie.
That's a more.
Yes, I did. Period. After about 12 hours,
Yeah,
I have to restart
and my
Discord, or else it freezes on me.
Patricia Arquette and James Franco.
Oh yeah, where there's a shotgun involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it actually made me cry for some reason.
So for people who haven't seen the film, I think he's actually hitting her or like this blood violence.
Oh yeah.
Resistant being murdered.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun. And then, he throws her into the glass, the shower thing. She's all cut up and stuff. And she laughs. There's just so much laugh passion. She knows she's gonna, in that moment, she knows that she's gonna die anyway. She knows he's gonna kill her. So she kind of gives it all she has.
But she also has the guts to be not afraid.
Yeah. Well, and also she loves Clarence.
Yeah, the love comes through that violence. Yeah. Just like Clarence, her fella in that film, has the same kind of thing when he visits.
Well, it was Gary Oldman again.
It was Gary Oldman again, that's right.
Yeah.
Him,
Looking very
Drexel.
yeah.
Yeah, and he's also fearless in that interaction, saying that she's not mine. It's interesting. That movie is so romantic. And happy ending.
That's what I like about it too, because I feel like some movies just come with. I don't want to watch a movie if it's going to be devastating, usually, unless it's worthwhile in some other way. But I'm kind of sensitive, and I don't want. I don't like movies that have a terrible ending. I mean, there's a book I read because it's got so many good reviews, and the very last scene was when Springsteen train. So I'm partial to movies with happy endings.
Leon ends with loss.
Right, but it's still really inspiring.
The love persists. Kind of fun.
Yeah, and the plant. The plant.
Okay, sure. True Romance does have one of the. I mean, it's probably unhealthy.
The ending scene.
You're so cool. Where she is that one the way where she just kind of looks at Clarence and her son, child, whatever, and she's saying, "You're so cool. You're so cool." Yeah, that's love.
I just felt movie has so much in it. It's funny, and there's so many good actors in that film.
And Brad Pitt plays in that film a pivotal role of pothead on the couch.
Yeah, they're all so good and funny, and Michael Rappaport and even Val Kilmer. People don't realize he's in the movie because he doesn't look like himself.
Wait,
Val Kilmer's in the very end. It's when there's like the Elvis sitting there.
Yeah.
To him in the end.
They were a favorite of Queen Elizabeth II as well.
Yeah, you don't notice it unless you
Yeah.
somehow either very perceptive or noticed it in the credits.
Yeah, and Quentin Tarantino wrote.
Yeah.
Interesting. Directed by Tony Scott. The music is beautiful too.
And Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper plays Clarence's
Dad.
dad, and they have this very racist sounding scene, but the big important aspect of that scene is that the father
I do not know who that is.
die
Period.
to protect his son.
Care to enlighten me? Question mark.
So much beautiful violence.
There is. I love it so much.
She's a prostitute, part time, short time.
No, it was her first time.
First time.
Yeah.
wish I'd
will
known
be
that
safe there. And
I'm sure you're aware of this, Karma, but you know I'm live in the VC, so you can tell that we are different people.
No violence whatsoever.
Karma, right? Question mark.
A Room with a View. It's I forget the author. It's a book, and I read the book much later. But it's Helena Bonham Carter and Daniel Day-Lewis is in it, and Julian Sands.
Daniel Day-Lewis is fascinating.
He's amazing at film and plays. He's very funny. He sort of plays
Perhaps my brother from a different mother.
which is unlike most of what he does. I don't watch a ton of movies, but yeah, but his role is funny.
Well, that's a heck of a top three. You brought me some books, some breaded books.
Yeah.
Some Russian bread, Russian flat bread.
Yeah, I mean it's Latvian, but it's similar to what's made in Russia. Made at Russian bakery.
That is my friend.
I don't know. Yeah.
You got some books. Beautiful room.
Yeah, and if you never read them, it's totally fine. You know, people give you books and you feel like you're
I don't
you sort of feel like
I see this as we'll talk about this. This is part therapy session. I don't feel the need to satisfy people's happiness.
that's a good thing.
So, it could also be an opportunity to expand something I never otherwise would have. So beautiful rooms.
It's a book that made me laugh and cry, and it's just a happy story. And for some reason, I don't know exactly why, but for some reason, so when you asked me to comment, it's just I thought, oh, I'm going to bring a copy of that book.
But you just felt you came to the forest.
Yeah,
There's other darkness and discipline.
these are more.
Memoir of madness. Compelling, harrowing. They've been portrayed of a debilitating disorder that offers the solace of shared experience.
This is just a little bit about this book that reminds me of the Carl Deiseroff book because he writes about his own condition in. I mean, he's an amazing writer. So he writes about it in this beautiful way, and oddly enough, in some ways, kind of delightful. So it's not at all a depressing book. I didn't find it depressing at all. I don't think it is. But he writes about his own experience with depression in such a beautiful way. My own copy is underlined. And the
I would love to look into the underlines and the books with notes. Those little secrets that people read.
that's part of why I like paper books is because I tend to underline like crazy. The Carl Deiseroff book is full of underlines too.
Well, I do the same thing on Kindle, but and you can actually more effectively go back and underline, highlight, and so on. But in fact, you know, underline on paper books. You sometimes want to go back to it. There are things you've underlined
In the paper books?
in the paper
Oh,
book.
I do. I go back. Yeah, I go back a lot.
Do you wonder what the heck you're thinking about when you know something?
No, well, sometimes I underline things that are, well, part of what I do is I have enough files in Evernote of transcribed quotes from books, ones that I want to save. So I might underline a lot of things in a book, and then maybe like a third of them, I want to write them down somewhere. So I write those down, and I think it's my mistake to transcribe it as somehow worthwhile. It's zeroing into my brain. And
The memory of having a brain the first time.
yeah, and sometimes I'll pick up books. And sometimes I just underline sentences that are, it's not the content of the sentence, more that it's just a beautifully written sentence or like a particularly apt metaphor or something that's really nice. And I like paper books too because I bought Beautiful Ruins. I would have never heard of it except one of my favorite things is to go to used bookstores. Actually, Goodwill sometimes has really good big book selections depending on the area where you go. Sometimes you find a lot of treasures there. And what ends up happening a lot is I end up buying books that I know, sometimes also because I lost all my belongings at one point, so all very often buy books that I've already read just to have them. And but then what always ends up happening is I'll find there'll be a couple of books that I buy that I've never heard of the author. I don't really know anything about. I don't know anything about the book at all, but something drew me to it. And what I like about that is you're buying used books, so it costs $1 or $2. So if you made a mistake, like no big deal. Okay. So, but every time I come back to the book haul, there's usually at least one gem that I end up loving, and I'm so glad that I read it. And Beautiful Rooms is that book for me, and I was drawn to it because of the cover art. Like I just love the cover and the colors, and I picked it up and got back and bought it. And I also feel bad sometimes like these books when the author's still alive. That's like write a book, get the royalties. So
But you get to live with that regret.
well, also, I mean, I'll usually end up putting a picture of Leon reading the book online, and then other people buy it and read it, and so I feel like I've made up for depriving
WTF?
royalties.
I used to live in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And I used to hang out at the pit in Harvard Square with my green and blue hair when I was way too young to be doing that by myself.
And there's a guy that I think has been there for a long time, between Kendall and Central, that would just lay out these books. That was just that guy, whoever he was. And he had a cool hat, he's an older gentleman. And you could just tell if you see him. I don't know who he is. I was going to actually talk for a long time, but I was afraid. Maybe because I would be able to handle what he had to tell me. Because I always wanted to maintain the innocence, just okay, here's this guy. But he was so. Every time he would ask me a question about it, well, first of all, he's read all of it, which means he's traveled quite a few places inside these worlds. And then you would tell him, I would look at a book, right, and he would catch you being curious about it, and then he would walk up to you, and then he would start talking about the book, and you would always forget that you were there. It's almost like he's not trying to sell you books.
Talking to himself.
Yeah, like almost like an ex-girlfriend he visited in his book or something.
I'm that West Side gangster,
Yeah. But
motherfucker.
the experience of just
I'm telling you, man, the
being
girls.
able to see lace them out. People actually.
Oh, what the fuck happened here?
What his name is, because I love to find that guy. I'm sure he's still there.
Maybe you'll have one like this.
I 100% will. But it's almost
What the
terrifying.
fuck is up with this?
I'm not sure I can handle because he's been through something.
Oh,
Unless
shit.
he's homeless or just looks like it.
Yep. That's all kinds of things.
And some of my favorite people either are homeless or. Okay, well, the third one. A Confession of a Sociopath by Emily Thomas. A life spent hiding in plain sight.
It's a
Look
book
at this
I
athleticism.
recommend a lot.
It's really
I've
impressive.
read a lot about sociopathy, and I read all the books by psychologists, and this one was written by a woman who understands herself that she is a sociopath. And so it's beautifully written, but I learned more from that book than from the other books, and I think I thought about it a long time ago. Conversations you talk a lot about good and evil, and whether everybody's really good or some people are not good. And I think sociopathy is something that I think the world needs to understand much better. And so that book a lot, and it's beautifully written, and she tackles all the really interesting moral questions, like like what if we were able to definitively diagnose people in some way, like there was you could immediately identify who's a full-on sociopath, and then what as a society would you do with them? Because in those cases, they're just going to cause destruction and pain and harm, and or potentially rise to power and become president, something. So I just found that fascinating.
And we'll return to this idea because it's fascinating. We'll return to human psychology and human nature. But let's go through the timeline of your life. So let's go through and get things right today. First, I'm going to give you a one summary, the way I understand it, and also some context. So, 2004, you, Matthew Kenny, Jeffrey Jodaro opened Pure Food Wine in New York City. That's it.
Pure food.
No,
Oh, there's. Well, yeah.
yeah. So it's an LS to launch a run restaurant in New York City. That's what I'm doing. So it's an upscale raw food restaurant. Alright, that's 2004. 2007, you opened One Lucky Duck Chicken Takeaway, and second and third location, 2009 and 14. All of those things closed in 2016. 15. Okay. Alright, 2009. Jeffrey lends you $2.1 million to buy the business outright, and Matthew out.
Matthew was out earlier than that, and then time passed, and I had, what was complicated is I had started the One Lucky Duck brand on my own.
.com.
It was a .com where people could order ingredients and things and all of the products that we made and packaged. So we had a bunch of cookies and snacks and things that were different and, if I may say so myself, better than other products out there. Yeah, but I feel like I could brag about our food and products because I wasn't, a few recipes early on I came up with, but it was the people that worked with me that created really good recipes and products, and I was just kind of there curating it all or helping to get it out there.
What was your favorite thing that you created? Maybe yourself, not you created, but this whole, all of these efforts have created in terms of meal. Like you said, cookies. What are we talking about here? Okay, not the paper, but like something that popped into memory that brought you joy.
The Malamar. Everybody loves the Malamar. It was so very often made like raw vegan versions of things that people are familiar with. So it was like a salty cookie made with nuts and then covered in chocolate, and then there's a big blob of coconut cream.
Look at this athleticism. Hey, let's talk about cookies. Damn, this girl is hot as
Our ice cream was made with
pretty hot.
Also, it's like the meat from coconut puree, and there's some soaked cashews in there. But anyway,
What the fuck is this shit?
Cream, kind of like a
This is just awful.
like a healthy, natural version of fluff. Fluff.
Basically, every single word you say, I'm not familiar with. You should see my dad on television. It's like steak and vegetables.
But fluff is like a thing that I remember from my childhood, like peanut butter and fluff. It's a ridiculously delicious combination. It's like a marshmallow. It's basically like you softened the marshmallows and made it into a luxurious, amazing food.
Oh, so it's like a
And then
fancy
put it in a jar.
Okay.
And then they just spreadable. It's spreadable marshmallows, kind of.
Oh, it's
I think that's, yeah. So,
spreadable marshmallow. Got it.
yeah. So there's a big blob.
I didn't know that existed. That's a thing.
Blob. Yeah.
Does everyone, people know about this?
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows. People, I think people know about it.
I did think I like. I took the road less traveled by. I love the peanut butter and Nutella. There was spread fully.
Nutella's like chocolate version, and then fluff is like this vanilla. But I think commercial fluff that you buy in the store is just like sugar and whatever else they put in there. Anyway, it's kind of fluffy, but it's wet. It's like, yeah, it's like Nutella if you whipped it, and then kind of got it a little bit aerated, so it's a bit more fluffy.
So fluff was not part of the formula.
So the coconut like a little scoop of it, and it would stay in that form. Now I'm like refrigerated, and then there's like chocolate, just a little bit. So it had that like salty, sweet thing going on. That was probably my favorite. Yeah, it was like a dessert snack. It wasn't, you wouldn't order it on the restaurant menu, but in the takeaway you could get them, or sometimes some people would get them shipped on dry ice and pay a lot of money, like a lot of money, to have them shipped on dry ice.
People are funny.
I know. I kind of want to like name drop Tom Brady. Order them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they would order those shipped on ice to Boston.
Yeah. Continuing on.
Okay.
2011, as we strangers on Twitter and then in real life. Also around this
Whole
time,
thing where I go back to class.
before you got your rescue dog named Leon.
Yeah.
2011, 2012.
It was September 2010. So I think he was born roughly around March. I gave him a designated birthday of March 10th, 2010.
Hey,
I
how
wrote about
Thanksgiving?
the story of adopting him on my website a long time ago, and then I posted it here on my current website. And what happened, I got weirdly obsessed with Leon before he was Leon. He was a dog in a shelter named Quinn. And I couldn't stop thinking about him. And
Him specifically.
him specifically,
I
yeah.
saw him and there's something very special about him.
I was trying to convince somebody else to adopt a dog. So, and
Valid.
yeah, and it didn't occur to me that I
I like how you didn't name drop him, but you name drop Tom Brady. I like it.
So I was trying to convince him to get a dog because I thought, you know, he should have a dog. I saw Leon's picture and just got weirdly obsessed with it in a way that I couldn't really explain. And I was laying in bed one night and thinking, I just couldn't stop thinking about him, the dog, and the paperwork or the description in the shelter bio said that he was roughly 5 months old, or however, whatever it gave as his age. I went back and it would have been March of that year that he was born, and I had a cat that I was particularly attached to. I had two cats, brother and sister, but the boy cat, we had sort of like something that felt like like we'd look at each other and like there was something there. I don't know what it was, but and in fact, when he got sick, I knew it before he even had any symptoms. It was like something in the way that he looked at me. I knew something was wrong. And then
Was it friendship? Was it like, was there power dynamic? Cats seem to not really,
yeah,
they seem to dismiss you.
usually, yeah,
Your entire worth being
right.
in a single look. Was that there?
He was more dog-like. He would occasionally fetch like this little styrofoam thing I had. He would fetch it and bring it back. He was friendly, and somebody came over and jumped in their lap. He was less standoffish than most cats. But there was just something about the way he would look at me. I don't know. And maybe, probably in his mind, he's just a cat. I give him food. Whereas in my mind, it's some kind of, great soul connection.
Great,
But not in
great
his,
long-running romance.
not in his eating mind. But either way, he died in March, and I thought,
Where did you get
so
those?
I sort of concocted this. I just thought, well, if he died on March 10th, so I thought, well, maybe Leon was born that same day, and that's why I'm so drawn to him. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. But
It's one of those
just
things
sounded
that
like
is sort of,
when you saw him, you just like there's
it
something.
was his picture, yeah.
Oh, the picture, and you were drawn to something about the personality, the eyes.
It was something about his picture, I don't know what it was, and everybody at the time was like, what are you thinking? Why would you get a dog? You can't even take care of yourself. You're overworked and busy, and why would you get a 5-month-old pit bull? And, why not get an older dog that's easier to take care of? For me, it was like, I don't want any dog. My intention isn't to get a dog, but there's something about this dog that I have to get. And so I went to see him, and then had already filled out an application. It was just, I went to see him, and then it was the afternoon, and I sort of decided in my head, like, all right, I'm coming back to get him. I have to. And so the next morning, I got on the subway. I went back to get him. And I was crying on the subway, and I remember thinking that people, I don't like crying in public. I cry a lot, but I don't like crying in front of other people. And
I love it.
I thought people on the train would be honest, like think that, I just, somebody died or
So you crying on the way there or on the way back?
on the way there. Yeah. I don't know why I was crying. It's just something about it was overwhelming. So
Tears of happiness or tears of something.
I think tears are overwhelming. I know I'm like jumping off, but there was some, I don't now try, was it in the conversation of the book, Carl Fleischer talks about tears of joy, trying to explain them. He said something about how it's like, about, tears of sadness could be understood, having like an evolutionary purpose, but why tears of joy? And I think he said something about like hope that could be like lost. So if you're crying at a wedding, it might be like you're crying because their love is beautiful, and you're crying because they could get hit by a bus tomorrow or something. Like it had something to do with that. And I thought I'm getting married. But I thought it made me feel like overwhelmed, because then how we got to explain music? Well, music will make you cry a lot.
Because it's anything beautiful, like love. You realize it's gonna be over one day. So
Or it's just overwhelming.
it could be overwhelming.
I think it's just overwhelming.
But if you have to explain, like one way to explain it, as you're saying it, it's so awesome. It breaks your heart that it's gonna be over. This feeling is gonna be over. The song, the person, gonna lose them one day.
But even when you're just watching something that just is completely ridiculous. But I remember one time, I probably was hormonal or something, but it was like an episode of Family Feud years ago. And the family, Wheel of Fortune. It was Wheel of Fortune, and some family like won all this money, and they were so happy. Like it's just, they were so happy. They must have probably needed the money or something. And I started crying, and I'm thinking, why am I crying? But I think it's just like an overwhelming. It's overwhelming in some way. And crying is a relief. Like you feel better after you cry.
But that's not, doesn't explain the cry. You feel better after you cry. And you're saying it's overwhelming. That's on the surface. The question is what's going on underneath. That's the Jungian shadow. And I don't think neither you or I can answer that question.
Right.
But there's something going on.
Right. There's probably something that touches you in some specific way.
So you're crying.
I found it in a Japanese
So I was crying in the subway.
It's very New York.
I got one from Jim too.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about New York. You can be weird and do strange things, and nobody's gonna look at you strangely or.
The fascinating thing about New York is super crowded. And yet you can still feel super well.
But also energized. So a lot of other things and places will make you feel depleted, but there's something about the energy of New York specifically that feels energizing.
I mean, everybody's going about their day, excited for the future they're building, and so on. And that could be energy. Sure. It could be overwhelming.
It can be, yeah. I mean, also depending on what neighborhood and what part of the
So I was talking about the subway.
Right. Yeah.
The subway, and then there's the musician. I love New York. New York is a special place. I never will, but every time I visit, it's so many characters, so many fascinating people.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of people that's crying on the subway. And you're what?
I was one of those people one day. Yeah.
So you
I befriended some busking musicians, like the guys that just play out on the street. These two young guys playing guitar, and I felt like it was one of those moments where it was like candid camera because nobody was paying attention, and I thought it was like, it was so beautiful. I may have cried or almost cried. But anyway, I ended up becoming friends with them and helping them out in some ways. And I knew, I was like, well, they're gonna do really well. And now they're like kind of large places, and it's kind of fun to watch the Instagram. You know, they're going on tour in Europe, and they were these two scrappy guys. Well, now it's just one of the guys. Um, but they had like no money, nowhere to live, nothing. And now they're,
And they didn't quit.
no,
They just didn't. That's
yeah, exactly. So, but I got him away, and I got there, and he was there, and I adopted him. But it just felt very profoundly like a force that was beyond me. Like I couldn't not get it.
So he was the same person as he was in the picture. Like, I mean, in terms of like something like holding you.
Yeah, when I first met him the day before, he was really distracted, which I think is, you know, he is a puppy that spends most of his day in a cage, which is not natural. So when they let me take him for a walk, it was just kind of, you know, distracted and all over the place. But then
I
when we
know the
went back
best
to the
tempest on
cage,
the West Coast.
he used to lay down and look at me, and I looked back at him, and of course, I imagined all kinds of. I just looked at him and I thought, all right, don't worry, I'm coming back to get you. Like I'll get you. So, yeah, it felt like something that I had no choice, that I had to do.
And that was the beginning of a 12-year journey together.
An ongoing one. But so I wrote about these things on my website, and I think it was, you know, among the many
God,
things
I'm gonna play some motherfucker in golf
later weaponized by
and beat the piss out of him.
Anthony Stream. Just
Four players, five
because I was
goals.
so open about it.
Let me
Yeah,
know.
and also it's not like I believed that he was, you know, that I was just expressing my
What the
feelings about
fuck
how I
is in
felt
there?
going to get him. It was something about Leon specifically that it was like I felt like I had to get him. So
Is there a word you can put to your connection with
He is smooth.
Like,
Very athletic.
is it love? Is it friendship? Is it some kind of like what is it? Or are we getting to the crying and being overwhelmed? Something you just can't put words to.
yeah, it's probably something that's hard to put words to. Kind of like I sort of feel like
Yo, bitch. Ready to
love
fuck up.
being something that's hard to define is part of is the definition.
Blah, blah.
The fact that you can't define it, you know, that
The moment you define it, you know what I'm talking about.
sort of something like that. So
Well, my definition of love is whatever's going on during him. I don't know. Maybe fly through the timeline before we get
Thought
to
you were
any interesting details. So, in 2011, we meet at these marriages. In 2012, we get married. 2015, the staff walk out into the
Dude, I hate playing with these people because they just quit.
In April 2015 and July that year, there's another walkout.
Make your shot.
So, all this kind of stuff.
timeline.
This was not, I mean, that's not even.
No way.
The point is, 2015, there's chaos happening. Okay. 2016, the spring, we were foods and wine and clothes.
was in 2015.
There's some factual stuff that's not, yeah, maybe right now, to me, it's not that important.
Fuck yeah.
It's the spirit of the thing. Okay. May 12th, 2016, you and your confident Anthony strangers were arrested after people said that he was Israeli. Okay. In May 2017, he pleaded guilty to stealing more than $2 million from investors and scheming to defraud as well as media.
Oh.
Reading it, in May 2017, he pleaded guilty to stealing more than $2 million from investors and scheming to defraud as well as criminal tax fraud charges. Well, I look at you wrong, and how dare you?
Well, I mean, I did plead guilty to those things. I had to. I was got a jury summons. I had to fill out like what charges I pled guilty to. And I had to go go online and look it up because I didn't really remember. Just I thought that was interesting. I had to go look it up, but
Actually, let me finish the time.
Why would you shoot?
oh yeah,
No way you're gonna make that shot.
Bad
Shitty
thing
shot.
documentary comes out, right? Where you're interviewed. They tell the story. Some stuff is true, sometimes some is not, some is misleading. Okay, timeline over. Anyway, what's wrong with the how would you elaborate to you pleading guilty of $2 million stealing?
so a lot of people plead guilty when they're for reasons other than they're actually guilty. So it's even right now, if I knew that
Go
I was going
Atomic
to have to
EA.
spend 4 months or 3.5
Make your shot.
at Rikers, and I was thinking about this recently, and even if I knew that I'd be acquitted
Beautiful
at the
shot.
end of the trial, I very likely would have just
Second
taken
done.
4 months because
Alright, Atomic. You and
the
me
stress
dogging a
of
book
going to
with
the
ass.
trial, but in particular, it was incredibly stressful not knowing the outcome. And then money and expense I didn't have, and so people plead guilty all the time, even if they don't think that they should. And my situation was so complicated and hard to understand that it just was an easier thing to do. But also, I think it's kind of going on the advice of lawyers.
Amazing shot.
The choice, just so I understand, to be guilty or to go to the length of the trial, and that trial would stretch a long time and it'd be extremely stressful
And extremely expensive,
because you have to pay the lawyers.
right? And I didn't have any.
This motherfucker is dumb.
And so a lot of people in that situation might choose to plead guilty. And so that doesn't necessarily mean the full heaviness of that statement of guilt.
Right, and I think
Give
people
it
plead
to me.
guilty all the time in
Give it
situations
to
where
me,
they're
baby.
being threatened with
Give it to
like a
me.
heavy sentence, and they sort of feel like they have no choice. But that's kind of a lot of things that are messed up about the system
Oh,
overall.
you
That
suck.
doesn't necessarily apply in my case, but
So we'll talk about to what degree you're guilty and what that even means.
yeah,
You're gonna hit the corner.
because it
No,
depends on
no.
intention.
Terrible shot.
Um,
The fuck, son?
Yeah. And
That's not what you want to do, dude.
also means a lot of things like the word love.
it's true.
Kid, you don't understand how
So,
good I am at
The
this fucking
restaurant
game.
closed the first time when I was away and told the
I play against motherfuckers with iPads.
and then I
Ryan,
yes, and then
he told you not to talk to anybody.
he told me not to like open email or
Good shot.
whatever.
Good shot.
And so when I came back and had to get it reopened, which seemed like an unbelievably difficult task, and I was kind of shocked that I was able to pull it off. I worked incredibly hard to get it reopened, and because that place meant
70.
everything to me, and so I just had to get it reopened.
Were you surrounded by people that were just angry at you?
At that time, well,
The staff and all that.
yeah, but most of them came back. A lot of them came back. I think what was so unbelievably painful about that whole time was like not being able to tell anybody what was really going on, and in a sense, not really knowing what was going on myself, but not being able to, like, having to pretend all the time was just like
So you didn't really tell anybody
about him and what was really going on, in part because I didn't really understand what was going on. So what I did was I raised money to reopen the restaurant, and I think I raised something like maybe like 900 grand.
Hit me the ball.
And probably 90% of that went to reopen the restaurant. And I even made 2 sales tax payments right before we disappeared. So it just sort of logically seemed. So I didn't. It's not like all of this money was taken and then I ran off together with a whole bunch of money. It was like I raised a bunch of money to reopen the restaurant, because I wanted the restaurant to exist again,
Fuck.
and I wanted to, I wanted to run it. I wanted to reopen the restaurant, and most of that money went to reopen the restaurant, and then I disappeared. So, um, so the
Yeah,
timeline
dog.
gets a bit wonky. So it's, this impression was created that we ran off with a whole bunch of money and we didn't. So, I wanted to be a criminal and steal a bunch of money. Why would I have put it all back into the restaurant and reopened it, and then also made two $10,000 sales tax payments that I didn't, and I also repaid, $10,000 of another loan, and I was making repayments and stuff, and then boom, I disappear.
So is your mind going through a roller coaster here? So could there have been multiple yous there? So one mind is like, I love this restaurant, I need to reopen it, I'm this chef, business owner, this person, and the other is the human that's in this complicated love affair.
It wasn't a love affair.
These are just words. How can I? Okay, I don't want to. Well, I say that lightly, but also not.
Look at this shot.
Because
Oh,
love
fuck.
is dark things. You can say that not love, but okay. The thing that traps us, the things that pulls us in to a connection with another human being, that's love. Humans, so dark and toxic and all those kind of things.
In some cases, I think, like if it's voluntary, but in other cases,
They like that
somebody
shot,
pulls
bitches.
you in. So it's not like you're drawn towards them.
Yeah, your shot is
They pull
impossible.
you in.
It's just to clarify, even when it's not physical, when the pull is inward, it's just emotional.
Yeah.
No shit.
Where is your mind when you raise $800,000, $900,000, open the restaurant, working your ass off to open this, making payments, and then all of a sudden disappearing? Where was your mind? If you had a lengthy conversation with contact Rob in privacy, what would you be telling him to your therapist?
I would probably be asking you questions. Well, actually, I have more questions for
Theo.
Andrew Huberman because, I've had to investigate all of these things myself, like dissociation, and even there's a psychologist who believes that he must have used neuro-linguistic programming on me, which is something that Keith Raniere from the Nexium called. He was known to have used that with people. And I think neuro-linguistic programming is kind of the same as
Shit.
like hypnotism.
The only reason I know about what NLP is because in what I do
Thank you,
is something
dude.
called natural language processing, artificial intelligence stuff that has the same three letters.
Right.
What was the other thing that NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we talked about Andrew, my friend Andrew Huberman offline. And definitely, you should do a podcast. He's a fascinating, such a really kind human being. Definitely worth talking to.
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of it.
And you said that you listen to a lot of his instructions on getting light in the morning or whatever during the day. It's very important for your mental. There's all these kind of studies. It's good for your mind. For your,
Oh, and also the other thing that he got me to do is to try to delay having coffee. So instead of having coffee right when you wake up, I always drink a lot of water first. But then instead of having coffee right away, if you wait an hour or an hour and a half to 2 hours, then your body is able to naturally do something that drinking coffee too soon would want that. So then you'll be more tired in the afternoon. So if you wait an hour and a half or 2 hours, or as long, before you have your first cup of coffee, then you won't be as tired in the afternoon. There's a lot.
does it work?
Yes.
One coffee addict talking to another coffee addict.
Yes, it works. And so I try to get up and do other things
Shit.
first, before I have coffee. And the light thing also makes a lot of sense to me. Getting light early in the morning. I have one of those bright light boxes. And love to have an apartment that had a little deck or something where I could just step outside. Because when we live in an apartment, you kind of have to like go all the way outside, and then there's people everywhere, and so to get that early morning light isn't that hard to do.
Are people good for you or bad for you? What said you would say about that? I'm just kidding.
No way,
Okay.
fucker.
Moving
No
back,
way.
where's your
Bad
mind
angle.
when you disappear?
No way.
Would you guys go to Vegas?
What in the
first,
fuck
and
are
then
you doing?
Tennessee?
No, I kind of refer to it as like the road trip from hell.
It's a very funny song to describe it.
Right.
You went back to the back country.
Maybe it was with Hunter S. Thompson-esque, except without actual
Really one.
drugs. That was one of the first questions my father asked me, was it drugs? And I wished that I could have said yes, because I didn't know how to explain what had happened. But
So road
he
trip.
took me away involuntarily. Except, first he wasn't holding a gun to my head, but all along it was like a metaphorical gun.
Was there ever physical abuse?
No, what would qualify as sexual abuse, yes. But physically, no. A couple of times we would get into a slightly physical fight, but he never, and he was big and as large and blubbery as he was also really strong. So sometimes he would like subdue me, but other than that, no, there wasn't physical violence. But a lot of people will say that the psychological violence is, I don't want to diminish physical violence, but some people say that the psychological and emotional violence is more destructive.
It's just that the physical violence is easier to identify.
It's easier to identify, and it seems kind of more straightforward. Whereas psychological, and you have a bruise on your face when you break a bone, and those things hopefully heal in a physical way. But psychological stuff, you can't easily identify or understand, or others can't easily identify it.
And then you find yourself crying for no reason at a beautiful song at some point.
Yes.
And that has to do something happening in the depth of your mind. Okay, so he took you away. But where was your mind that was doing both of those things? It was able to be taken away, but also was pushing to the flourishing, the reopening and flourishing of the restaurant.
Well, I wouldn't have reopened the restaurant, and then knowing I was going to all of a sudden be taken away from it, and it was going to get closed again. It's like, why would I do that? Why would anybody do that? And one of the things that I tried to do towards the end was I was trying to get myself off the bank account because I didn't want him to be able to get money out of me. And so there was one time when I tried to get one of the investors, we went to the bank together to put her on as a signer and take me off. And because we didn't have the operating agreement, they wouldn't let us do it. So it's like this little snafu. And so all of these things are sort of the opposite of criminal intent.
But that's a legal thing. What's going on in your mind?
I don't know. I mean,
did you give yourself a chance to just think?
no. And I think that's part of one of the things that might have saved me or anybody that's pulled into a cult.
America's
One of the things
already
that they
bought
do
and
is
paid
they
for.
make you exhausted, overwhelmed, confused, and afraid. And so you don't have any time to think. So you're just kind of constantly running and confused, and then things are happening. It's funny, there's a report in my book draft because I listen to a lot of podcasts. But I don't know what the logistics are of like crediting a quote from a podcast in a book.
Yeah.
But I have a couple. I think it was Andrew Huberman on Joe Rogan said something about
Universal.
If a human or animal, I don't know how to know, the human or animal is stressed, and I'm paraphrasing horribly, but they're much more easily prone to be not prone to, but forced into delusional thinking. And so that quote resonated for me because he kept me in this incredibly stressed out, afraid, confused state. And then whatever he's sort of planting in my mind, I'm going to be that much more likely to just kind of go along
There
with it.
has been, period.
We'll see how this whole
California has had
So I think there's a step back.
some trial programs in different cities, and it has been very successful.
Do you ever remorse what would happen, especially from the perspective of the employees and staff?
Yeah, I mean, hurting them was the last thing that I would ever have wanted to do. And in part, I mean, it was financial harm, but I don't know whether it's more important or not, but, you know, it was taking a place that was very much like a family to them. And it was as if I destroyed it.
This is brilliant.
Because we were so much like a family, it was almost as if like mom went out to weekend and got together with some cuckoo abusive guy and abandoned them, and they didn't know what was going on and what was happening. And
Did you regret lying to them?
I regret lying to anybody in all of those circumstances, but I wasn't lying. You know, he made me think that, you know, everything was going to be reversed and okay, and anybody that money was borrowed from, they would get it back, you know, maybe tenfold. And so it was this weird situation of having like one foot in his reality and potentially believing the things he was saying, or even over time wanting to believe them more and more because the alternatives were so the alternative was the alternative was like was increasing.
Once it can be integrated within a robot, comma, it will put basically everyone out of a job.
This idea that we pay like 100x gold.
Right.
Kind of like,
So it's sort of like lying to somebody because you're planning a surprise party. You think like, well, I'm lying to somebody, but it's because there's a good reason.
yeah.
You know, it's sort of, that's not a good example, but
But you could have not made it a surprise party. You could be like pulling in on the planning of the party and be honest about like everything that's happening. Not in a negative way, but like getting in on the fact that okay, I just need to give money to this guy, but we'll get
At a certain point, comma, they will likely not have a choice, period. Their doctor, comma, their lawyer, comma, their financial advisor, comma, and every other
that's part of the torture is that you're isolated.
position around them will be replaced, period. AI is the future, comma, it is not
choosing not to say anything.
a question of if, comma, just when, period.
Because it's embarrassing, sort of. Is it embarrassing something? I mean, why do you not tell others? You know, what is that? What's happening to the mind when you don't tell others?
No, you're part of why the story is, you know, everything that happened is hard to summarize and talk about in any precise way. Is that so much of it happens in this very
It is being done pretty well now
slow way.
by companies like Boston Dynamics, period.
So that by the time you realize you're fucked, it's too late. And it seems hard to believe or understand other people because they see where you are or where you ended up, and they think, well, how did you let that happen? Well, I don't know. Would I have willingly destroyed my life and hurt all the people I care about, and you know, allowed my mother to get hurt? And I wouldn't have ever willingly done that. So something else must have happened, and that's the part that's difficult to understand.
Let me ask you about another hard question. Do you deserve most or all of the blame for the failure of the business? Or are others at fault too?
All it needs is integration
Doing well,
with
and so
LLMs
his life
and
was destroyed.
Who deserves the blame?
a few years of quality assurance, comma,
Think about it.
and
In the privacy of your life,
it will be better than any employee ever, period. It can work 24 hours a day, comma, 7 days a week, comma, 365 days a year, comma. It never needs a break, comma, it never needs to go to the bathroom, comma, and it will never unionize.
I feel responsible in the same way that if you kind of did something, if you're driving and did something stupid and caused an accident in which other people died, you would feel, I think, horrifically responsible, and you blame yourself. Maybe you looked away or checked your phone or something. Um, but you didn't intend to kill those people, of course. So for me, it's like
People do not
I didn't
reject
intend to kill.
stem cell therapy, period.
You know,
It is just
sometimes I
about
say, like, my own
resources
child,
and affordability,
but it's
period.
like, as if
It
I
is very
killed my own
popular where I am,
child. It was
comma,
special.
and I know that it is popular in other countries, comma, as well, period. There is even a
And then,
medical
I'm angry
tourism
at him, even though that anger is pointless.
industry
Okay.
that
This
has
come up.
arisen
Let's
in
continue
Central America.
with the hard question.
Are they going to get easier? Okay.
This is fun. We're having fun. He posted on Instagram the ending. No, I'm gonna slice Instagram like it's Shakespeare.
Okay.
The ending is disturbingly misleading, but still, I'm very grateful for this coverage. Let's talk about the documentary. Okay, quote this documentary. I'm okay with the criticism and judgment, but would rather be based on what's true. And then you say a couple more sentences, and then you say Leah with his own Instagram account. One lucky rescue dog says hello. He loves you all, even if you call me a quote defective, arrogant sociopath.
New things will be produced, period.
So, the hard question: do you think
As
you are in part a sociopath?
No.
Which you know is you are.
Yeah.
How's this work? So, what have you learned from reading this?
I had all these interesting thoughts about all these sort of questions and thoughts about it because the book I'm reading now, but I'm only about a third of the way through, she talks
we may
about
have the opportunity
some of the
at
things in the brain
a
structure
second
that
renaissance
are particular to
because
sociopaths.
people will be free from having to perform jobs and
In some
will be
way.
able to
Like,
take
if
up
you
new
fuck
hobbies,
sociopaths,
comma,
sociopaths,
including art, comma, pottery, comma, painting, comma, music, comma,
genetic, and it's like genes are turned on
and other
by things
activities,
like
period.
violent childhood,
There may be
dysfunction. So
a desire for this type of
turned on, and then,
art
um,
as opposed to
have genes and
AI-based art, comma, because it is connected to a human, period. The human connection will make it unique and perhaps valuable.
It's a hollowness, so it's like you don't have just completely lacking. Everybody's going to have to. I mean, it's tragic because they wouldn't understand or feel love, but it's like a hollowness. And then something also about the wiring, and I think also because of that hollowness, they're able to incredibly quickly look at others and identify their insecurities and buttons and weak spots. So they're incredibly good at manipulation.
Is that because they're just able to objectively observe the situation?
Probably in part, but there was some other explanation related to the brain structure that I read somewhere that made sense to me, and I won't remember it because I don't usually. Yeah, like I'll listen to
perfectly.
Yeah,
We take a line from every book or paper he's ever read.
Right. I don't remember things in that way. I try to usually remember the conclusions. So like I might remember that
Robots like
you might give a whole long explanation
Boston
about why
Dynamics'
to do this or to take this supplement.
Optimus and
That's a bad
Tesla's
habit I have. Sometimes
Optimus
I'll
are just
and by the time they
a
arrive,
few years away from being able to replace
forgot why.
just about every manual position, period.
I hope we get to talk about food because I feel like you have a brain that should be fed only the best food.
Oh, wow.
So we can talk about that later.
I have a lot of philosophies about that. But certainly, fluff will not work in the best. We'll definitely talk about food. Wow, what is best? That makes me think of corn. And I just talked to Oliver Stone, who I didn't realize wrote very.
Do you know that in my head I pictured Tony Brown?
This is likely correct, period.
Yeah. Sociopathy.
Sociopathy.
Yeah.
So it's stuff about the brain, fine. But how do you know you're not a sociopath? Would you know it? Am I a sociopath? How would I know?
Well, having listened to a lot.
What would that be? Be good at taking it? That way.
Well,
There's a
yeah,
math at the cover of this book.
I don't think you would be doing the work that they're doing. You'd probably be running for office or, a trader on Wall Street. Or one of the things about sociopaths is they kind of need like the stimulation of risk and danger.
Live off of UBI, universal basic income,
More than average.
and take up new activities like become artists or musicians.
Like I don't like the fakeness of all the game.
Yeah, that's why I left. I just, it was a strange environment.
Okay. So you're not a quote defective arrogant sociopath. What is defective?
I know. Well, I think that somebody had just called me that, and I think that it's easy for people to say like, I don't read the comments, but it's hard not to because then also you miss the beautiful ones. Or sometimes like you have to go on there to check a private message, and you just stuff. It's there. People saying terrible things. So I try to. People say, don't pay attention to comments. It's hard not to, but I try to.
Well, the documentary you try to still see.
They may in the future, period.
To
They may have to sell off
for the kind one.
government assets and land to be able to pay for it, but they will essentially have no choice, period. The people will need a way to be able to afford things without jobs, period.
Based on, they're based on false information. So if somebody knew everything that happened, and then wanted to judge me or say things like that's somehow, at least that's all right. But so you think people saying these things based on things that are totally false is just, it's hard to just let that go. Yeah, but I know that people also say things, for their own personal reasons. I had a fascinating exchange with somebody who direct messaged me and called me trash. I responded because it was no, it was amazing. So I would do this for a while. It's sort of like I might be procrastinating or I would scroll through because the private messages are overwhelming and there's still just this massive backlog that I'll never probably get to read.
But the one that called you trash is a pickup as an opener. You're like, this is interesting.
I just was in a mood,
Yeah.
and so I responded.
Perhaps a slow, downward spiral, until additional depth.
Exactly, I said to him, but I responded to him in a nice way, and then he responded back, and then it started to pull back into the conversation.
The only alternative is for those people who will be able to afford mind uploading technology, essentially a version of digital immortality, where they will be able to live out their future as androids, avatars, cybernetic beings, cyborgs, robots, ethereal beings, clones of themselves, or whatever they want, period. There is a breakaway civilization that is happening before our very eyes, period.
But it's like his name and his face was there.
And people forget that you're a human being.
Exactly.
You message me, I'm a human being.
So I told him that was, that was hurtful. And I guess I wanted to understand more why he said it. And it was surprisingly insightful, but he said something about, again, I'm trying to read it, that he was like, I guess I was just angry because like that guy, he said something like, I guess I was just angry because that guy got you, and I would have, so it made me think of the whole like sort of incel jealousy thing that can be very terrifying if you're, you know, is that like if you reject a guy, they might turn around and be violent or angry at you. And so his,
Well, to be fair, there's a dormant anger in probably all of us. I believe there's a capacity for cruelty and anger and destruction in all of us. The whole struggle of life is to emphasize good stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's not just an insult thing. It's true for men and women. Both.
yeah, that is very true.
But this one guy, so maybe put out my therapist hat. This we started with um, I already forgot. But no, no, just maybe it's not the best idea to answer comments and start with if you're trash.
I don't do it all the time. It's just I happen to find that one, and I was just in a certain mood. It was just a certain mood.
Well,
And
let's
and I like
further offline
yeah,
discuss this mood that you're in. That might get you in trouble at some point in the near future. Okay. Can we just jump back and thinking of guys say as an opener you're trash? How did you and Anthony Strangers can we jump around and tell some details here? Is that I believe the documentary that you covered that like wow, it's not clear. There's some good interaction and you've gotten to sue him. By the way, I do think he's social media coaching on this.
I have an alternative, comma, if you want to hear it, period.
I have some,
The world is heading towards 1984, comma, but there is a lesser known book known as 1985 that provides people with a potential escape, period.
Strangers that he was somehow friends with Al Baldwin because of their friendly interaction on Twitter. So you started interacting with him, and then there was how did that escalate quickly to
it escalated slowly, and I think I'm sure it was intentional because had I met him right away, I would have probably thought like, oh, he's not what I thought he was, and no thanks. But it was it was many weeks of back and forth conversation, digitally one way or another. So it was,
Do you want to know what I envision as the alternative question mark?
We both played boards of friends back then, and that's boards of friends, and then eventually, we exchanged phone numbers.
how does Word with Friends?
Boards
I know
of
that's a
friends.
popular game, so it's Scrabble.
It's like Scrabble, and you're playing other people, and then there's like a chat function.
Yeah, and you can chat.
Right.
So you were this intellectual stimulating game, and you were what, like flirting and that kind of stuff, like witty banter,
Yes.
aka flirting.
Yes. And but all of that lasted a really long time, and he would give me like little tiny bits and pieces of information about himself that made him seem kind of mysterious.
Dark, mysterious man was Navy
At
SEAL.
first, people made fun of me in here,
Yeah.
comma, but they're starting to see that I am a relatively intelligent individual, period. I have more data on the internet archive than any person ever, period. You can literally watch my life going back to the pandemic, every single moment of every single day from 360 degrees on multiple streams, period. People will continue to learn about me in here, and eventually I will gain a following, period.
One of the interesting things is that I used to think that you used an app to look up things, but then he could look at, he was really good at it, and he could look at the board and just come up with.
Someone will post about what I do on Reddit,
So I think
comma,
that
that is going to gain momentum, comma, and
brain manish or something in the way that
I will be able to monetize the data
incredibly.
more than any person ever, period. I will then ensure that everyone within this server is rewarded handsomely, comma, so that all of your money worries go away permanently, period.
I know it's not well there.
You will be able to start charities, comma, help your friends, comma, and help your families, comma, all because I have created the world's largest timeline or time capsule, period. It will likely be studied at length by generations to come, period. It is just a matter of time until the community understands the power of data, period.
So that was heartbreaking for the first time in my life. I had split with my boyfriend for 4 years. Yeah, I mean, it was, I knew it was a relationship that I knew would end, even when I got into it in the first place. Because he's 15 years younger than me. And
Surely they can't be the only care or the reason it's anymore. I need to also give you a book on love.
what's it called?
I'm gonna write it.
Okay,
Just
it's not a book.
joke.
Right.
Go book on Twitter and go book on. A lot of people keep trying to
That I really like.
like love languages. I still have to read that.
No, it's called On Love
I can't wait.
by
I'm gonna read the clip notes by.
it's short, by this guy named Alon.
I don't trust him already.
No, it's funny and it's beautiful and it's shocking that he wrote it when he was very young. When I first heard him on the Tippett podcast. That's how I end up reading a lot of books. It's like, here's somebody in a podcast.
So
Love,
you knew
yeah.
it's gonna work.
I knew it was going to work because that's just because they was also, you know, I just knew that eventually you want to move on and probably find somebody younger and or who's young enough that they still needed to go have a bunch of other experiences and, you know, probably wanted a family or whatnot eventually. So he was 21 and I was 4 when we first met. But then we ended up living together for 4 years. And it was the most drama-free, like no drama. And I had just come off my prior relationship with Matthew Kenny, which was very dark in many ways, and full of all kinds of yeah. And I just couldn't handle that. So between us.
Is there a part of you that's attracted to the drama and the chaos? No.
I feel like that happens a lot, and maybe there was at some point, but I don't think so because you know part what made that relationship work with his name was Tobin was that there was no drama, none at all, and I don't think I could have handled it, and I feel that way now too. Like I just couldn't, I can't like fighting or any kind of like people being passive aggressive. I can't handle that. So
You've had enough storms, right?
yeah.
So you knew it wasn't work.
I knew it wasn't going to be forever.
Well, that could be just insecurity, but fair enough. And then the heart was broken.
Yes.
And now the heart is broken, fragile, and they're
Yes. And there's another person that I heard. It's like quoted. I'm not going to say, but when you're heartbroken, you can't rely on your instinct. Somehow your instincts are compromised when you're heartbroken. And maybe I'm just like,
I learned a while back.
I don't know why this happened, but I was heartbroken and then
I think they're heartbroken. It's like shows how much they really love them.
No, comma, text to speech, period.
But like sometimes love doesn't reveal itself as rich when you're in it.
right.
Anyway, so your judgment was good. Great. So now you're lonely and
Do the thing where you copy it and paste it, and everybody else does too.
Yeah, and I was kind of overwhelmed.
I'm sure you're getting a lot of attention from other guys who you were.
Yeah. Well, no, because it was a restaurant, so it was constantly meeting people, and really interesting people, and New York is full of a lot of interesting people.
And you're attractive. So why are you connected to some mysterious man somewhere else?
Because, well, I think now looking back, I think it's just I felt like he understood me, and you know,
What was that feeling? Like, why did one feel that you're understood?
one thing that made me extra easy to target is that I'd written a lot of very personal blogs and things. So, in addition to him asking me questions and me probably just being insanely open and answering whatever he asked me, I'd also written and posted a bunch of personal blogs. Some of them I've reposted on my new website, and then some of them I haven't. But in one of them, I go into detail about my frustrations professionally in growing a business. And having read that and being a very smart person, you would have known kind of precisely what to say to get me drawn in. So I think by waiting so long before we met in person, he'd already gotten me hooked in a way that was going to then make it possible for me to, see him, and even though he doesn't look like I thought he did, I'll make excuses for it. Or, that's a dangerous thing about people. And I'm not saying I fell in love with him in this way. That I feel like there's another explanation for what felt like love. But when people fall in love quickly, there's danger that because that's what happens first. But the more you learn about them, it rationalize away things that might be red flags or things you don't like. So I think it's safer to fall in love when you get to know somebody not in the context of dating them, like Jim and Pam on The Office. Did you watch The Office?
Yeah, of course I watch it. We're British Office is better. But yes. So, yeah.
Top and tail is fucking hard.
But I also want to, I like this. Yeah, it's fine. But just, I think the better lesson is, yes, that's one thing to say, but the other is like when you see the red flags, be a little better about noticing them, even amidst the passion.
What if like a brilliant woman kind of threw herself in your path, right? She having, because talking on a podcast is a little bit like having a blog where you overshare. People learn everything about you, what you like, what you don't like, what your wants and dreams, and So some woman like pretends to throw herself in your path, seemingly accidentally, and then you meet, and
She has a Russian accent.
It's athleticism, folks.
yeah, but whatever. She is who she is, and then she sort of slides into the conversation like a close idiot, right? And you're like, right? But she's not who she is. That's all. And so you very quickly fall in love with her, and she's gonna turn out to enjoy the game of destroying your life.
Yep. That or the love of my life. And
But not if she intentionally.
But you have to then pay attention to that's the dark aspect here. You mentioned blog. I love when people have that stuff about themselves online. You get to really learn. I'm a fan of podcasts. I'm a fan of people. I love learning about that personal stuff and so on. Hopefully for good reason. The person, people you connect with deeper in love with you as a friend.
Or like genuine curiosity.
Yeah, genuine curiosity. Like there's something you're drawn. Like imagine your dog Leon has a claw in the air. Oh yeah, it does sound. Yeah,
It kind of does.
yeah. But as when you met him, right? Then you feel like, what is this? What is there that's pulling you towards this creature? This entity. What is there? It'd be fascinating to learn more.
Right.
Fall in love with the details, not just some kind of ethereal. Yeah, you don't know. You have to pay attention to the red flags.
Yeah. I think one of them actually is somebody who doesn't have that kind of. I mean, plenty of people are private and they don't put stuff out about themselves online for all kinds of very valid reasons. But somebody who does share a lot about themselves personally, maybe there's examples, but there's probably not a sociopath, but they're sharing all kinds of.
Sure. But I mean, on the other side, when you meet people, yeah, I still like to watch them. Because the red flags, earlier or later, doesn't matter. I'd rather see red flags right away. I go in hard, casually, to clarify, going hard, and like, no small talk. Just get to know quickly, get to know the person, challenge with them, road trip from hell or not. Go on a road trip and find out.
But you might, there was somebody I was in
It's all from the other
a
perspective.
destructive relationship with where we had already fallen in love and then went for the first trip in a situation where we were like had to borrow. I guess he was still sharing his car with his ex-wife, so we had to go to the garage to pick up the car to go on his school trip. And
Because you literally baggage. Yeah.
so something happened where the garage was like wanted more identification and it was a pain in the ass. Anyway, this guy was so unbelievably rude to the garage, like just nasty. And I was completely shocked and disturbed. And we got in the car in this long car ride, and I was like not saying anything. I was really shocked. And then he noticed that and was very concerned. And I explained, like I would never treat somebody that way. And then he pretended to get incredibly upset and to feel horrible and remorseful about it. And it was like all we talked about for the next few hours. And then I kind of thought like, well, okay, I can get over that. And then the relationship continued and it was a dark and destructive one. Whereas, had I seen him behave that way before we were in a relationship, I would have known to back away.
Okay. But the lesson is still walk away. Just still walk away. And,
No, you can't. Well, if I could have walked away at any point, I call him Mr. Fox. That sort of depersonalizes him. But I could have walked away from him at any point in time. But that's kind of the whole point of what they do, and the whole reason why people don't understand it. I mean, it's like being in a cult of one. So the people who've been in cults and got now, we understand each other very well, because the same psychology was used, the same psychological tactics were used on us, and then we experience the same thing on the other side of it, which is hard for us to understand and it's hard for other people to understand. And everybody's saying that would never happen to me, or they're saying I don't get it, because you're smart, how could you let that happen? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you walk away? And on the other side of it, we don't have the answers, or it takes a really long time of self-reflection and reading and investigation to try and figure out how it is that it happened and why didn't we walk away.
it's definitely hard at every level. And I just think that even for more subtle, not outrageously toxic relationships, but like normal toxic, like a little bit toxic
But
relationship.
there are some people that kind of thrive on conflict.
Yeah, but you should still just be self-aware. Like I think you've talked about, give yourself time to think about the red flags, and because the little things that bother you are big things. So
Yeah, so it could be less romantic, but I feel like getting to know somebody slowly over time.
yeah, it's smart.
It's safer.
Fuck it though. So, but again, my Russian slash Ukrainian male perspective. Anyway, so meeting Mr. Fox, Anthony,
That's a chapter title in the book. Meeting the
meeting Mr. Fox. So you're working on a book about this.
I'm almost done. Taking a really long time.
Can you define almost done? Because said that it's like it's when people say like they're meeting, like I'm almost in the car,
Right.
and they're actually
not really.
they're not really they haven't even started showering yet or something. So
Yeah. I think I probably need some like therapist to work with me on this.
are you usually late to things?
No. I'm usually I sent you a text message. That was early when I got here. And I said that I'm it's because of I think I said my crippling fear of being late. I'm like always early.
So I'm loitering outside like a weirdo, but you have to come in if it's not too early.
For work.
The crippling fear of being late makes you find too early.
They touch with your fancy art.
Yeah.
So I got here before I rang the bell. I was outside for a little while, like every time going, I'm way too early. But it's really hot out.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I always very early to the airport, and then I have time to kill. But that's fine with me because that's actually time I appreciate.
But if that's my own crime, is it a worse crime than leaving a smoky microwave?
Write things, or I worked on my book draft on the airplane, mostly editing, which it needs a lot because it's really long. It's in word count.
So all the things are already completed, and you're just editing down.
No, I wish it's in 5 parts. I've written 1 through 4.
Okay, yes. I went to New York.
Part
Everybody.
5
This
like
is pretty old, period.
girl there, but some of them are messy.
Bitcoin has
Some of them are just like
done a
paragraphs,
5x
some of them are just-
since 2017.
Some of them are done.
Well, I worked too hard all day.
So,
to be late here,
I am
too.
kind of
I got enough to
almost, it's like 5 parts and part 5 is not quite finished.
What if you,
But I've been editing along the way. So
this is gonna come out in 2023, I think you mentioned. So it won't come out for a bit before we'll figure it out. What have you learned about yourself from putting some of these things down on paper? What's like the darkest thing for the last night or so? From writing.
darkest.
Well,
One of the things that was fascinating is reading through all of our correspondence between him and me that I was able to find. He deleted all our emails, but he didn't. I think he thought he deleted all of our group chat, but he didn't.
So he have access to your email
Yes.
on that side too.
And he had access to my email most of the time. And then at the end was also emailing people as me, which was incredibly mortifying to come home and then get back into my email and find that. And I think he was also texting people as me, and those I'll never know unless somebody brings it to my attention. Because after a certain date in 2015, he had my phone, and he had exclusive access to my phone and email, so I wasn't looking at it until I got out. Until after we were arrested, and I was out on bail, and my sister, and it took me a long time to get back into my Gmail because I had to verify who I am, and I never got my phone back, so I don't know what texted to other people as me after that. But anyway, I was able to recover a lot of our Gmail.
They don't have permission to do it. They don't need your permission.
Use that. I don't know why people don't use it anymore. But it used to be a thing. It's like if you work with people and you want to email, it's a really easy way to message back and forth.
The chat,
I have a reasonable right to drive with the standard money for the jury to.
I think it's still
Yeah,
there.
let's cancel this, okay?
Nobody pays to talk to people on that.
Oh,
Nobody
God,
talks to
I
anyone.
don't know. That was
I'd rather
cute.
I don't.
No, no, no.
Yeah. People don't love and do social
That is,
products.
and I bet he is.
So now they try some
and then I kept finding like more layers of stuff, and including a journal that I didn't find the DA, the prosecutor found. My journal that I thought he thrown away, I didn't know it existed. So somehow he still had it. And they found my journal, which was for the year 2014, in the very beginning of 2015.
Is that you got this is in the middle of it?
It was in the middle of it, yeah. So reading that was fascinating.
Yeah, what's the interesting things there? What was it? Was your mind completely out?
It was weird because no,
Were you concerned? Were you in love? Were you afraid?
I was not in love. I was afraid. I definitely write repeatedly in there that I'm afraid of him. I also write repeatedly things like, I don't know what's going on, like, please let this be over, please let this be over, please let this be over. And then in a sort of, if I try to lose myself and look at it if I was a different person, it's sort of heartbreaking because I was trying so hard to be positive, and and that didn't work out, trying to be positive. So, but when it turned up later in the process, and my lawyer at the time called or something and said, the DA has or the prosecutor, they have your journal. I haven't read it yet, but as soon as I get a PDF copy, I'll send it to you. So that was sort of weird to think that everybody's reading my journal, which, you don't write it thinking people are going to read, unless you're like a historical person, and then later on you think people are going to print from it. But, yeah, nobody's writing
Just
journal.
I can just imagine like a 14-year-old thinking they're going to be a historical person, right?
Right. Well, no, I mean, like, presidents who keep journals, and then they're later on.
Sure.
So you write it, you don't think anybody's going to read it, and so that was a weird feeling. And then also just not knowing, not remembering what I wrote. So it was the next day, she sent me a PDF copy of it, and I read it really quickly because I could read my own. It was a PDF, so it was like Xeroxes of the pages. It was in my own handwriting, which I could read really fast because even though it's messy, I wrote it, so I could read it really fast. And I read the whole thing and was crying, but I thought, okay, finally, like, surely nobody could read this and think that I intended to commit crimes. And so I thought that journal was just going to fully exonerate me, and they would, like, if not drop the charges, like, it was just like, okay, well, some bad things happened, you're responsible, here's probation. But it didn't seem to make any difference, which was strange. But anyway, so the journal, and then also finding all of the correspondence not all of the correspondence between him and me, but the G-chat correspondence between him and me. To me, so, all of that, and like, I wish that everything could have been kind of put out there as evidence. Like, the more they turned up, the better for me, because I wanted them to see everything. And there's just so many examples in the correspondence between him and me where he's, threatening me and, lying to me and telling me that if I don't do what he says, my whole life will be destroyed and I'll lose everything I ever cared about. All kinds of things like that. But what I still don't quite understand, and what one of my lawyers said why all of that wasn't as useful as I thought it might be, is because so much of that correspondence, I'm like sarcastically, angrily, I'm yelling at him, I'm mad at him, I'm like, fuck you, I'm making fun of him, I call him names. I'll say to him, like, you're lying, why should I believe you? You told me you paid me back before, but you didn't. So it seems like it doesn't make sense. Like, how is it that if I say to him, you're lying, you're a liar, that I still, so then what would happen is I'm reading that correspondence, and then it stops for a while, maybe because I was with him in person. And then I'll look at, like, my timeline of things, and I'll see, like, oh, I sent him a wire for $80,000. Like,
Yeah, how do you explain your ability to still joke around and also to be like mean to him in a joking way? Like, couples can do that. doing it, and then there's like humorous ways, just like you're talking shit, whatever. You were able to do that still, and yet you're sending over the money and are afraid. Like, how can you be those two things? Like, as opposed to completely shutting down.
Well, I don't know. I mean, these are all interesting questions that I have as well. Like, how is it that I was functional,
Yeah.
and yet also doing these things? And so, the year that we were gone is like a different level because I no longer was running the business. But the thing about dissociation is that you're functioning, but like your feelings and your thinking are detached in some way, so that like you're functioning and people wouldn't look at you and go, "Oh, that person's dissociating," because you're functioning, you seem normal, but somehow in your head, you're like disconnecting your feelings and your thinking. So
You're still be able to be like, like the game of social interaction, like being witty and so on, and all that kind of stuff. You're still
for me, I think it's like a coping mechanism too, because if I went, I haven't been to a funeral in a long time, but if I went, I'd probably like find absurd things, or I'll tend to like either make jokes or want to make jokes at really inappropriate times, even in tragic times, because it's almost like a defense mechanism. I
like
think.
you said, you told me like doctor. Yeah. My next door neighbor is Michael Malice. He's an anarchist.
I have one of his books,
The hero.
Fear Reader.
Hero, yeah. And he embodies dark humor, troll, dark humor, and there's underneath it this weird sort of being. He's writing a book now, The White Pill, that's really focused on Stalin and the Holodomor, just basically atrocities throughout the 20th century. I think he needs the dark humor to release the valve.
I think there's something about incredibly good, but the most offensive comedians tend to have the kindest hearts. I think this is my theory. People like Ricky Gervais, goes out and insults people and makes jokes that people find horribly offensive and crude um, and and yet is a huge animal rights guy and appears to be an incredibly sweet and kind person and sensitive. And Howard Stern, people who are like incredibly crude, very often are, in my experience, to the extent that I've gotten either to know people personally, observe them, learn about them in other ways, but that almost like the more crude and offensive the comedian or the person, they tend to have the kindest.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a universal rule, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, I
also know Howard Stern. He seems like not a good person.
Oh no, he's such a good person.
Underneath it, for sure.
Oh yeah, such a good person.
He's just said so much. So I'm friends with Rogan. He said so many ignorant things about Rogan, but I suppose that's.
So I haven't listened to Howard Stern in a long time, and I also think that people who say bad things about Rogan don't listen to his podcast.
Right.
Because if I've listened to his podcast, and like people think that, I think people would assume that I don't like him because, or the whole like vegan thing, and he's all about meat, and they think that I would think, no. I mean, because I've listened to enough of his podcasts, I've heard the one where we talked about why he hunts, and whereas if I only knew him via his Instagram, I might think he's an asshole. But having listened to all of his, not all, I don't all of them, there's a ton of them. But having listened to a lot of his podcasts, enough to know that, he's an extremely kind person with all the best intentions. And I think that all of that judgment comes from people who are just seeing little clips.
Yeah,
It's probably easy to take little clips from him that sound.
Yeah, the lesson there is just not make judgments on people without getting to know them, especially when you have no excuse when the content is out there. Like, don't be lazy.
Yeah, I try. I'm very careful when, a lot of these cases, like the Deptford thing or
Johnny Depp and
Elizabeth Holmes and anything like controversial. And sometimes that makes me, I can't think of an example, but very often like when somebody criticizes something or something becomes controversial, that's what gets me to want to understand it better. So then I'll go like read the book that everybody's mad about.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's true though. So I try to have humility. I know this is what I don't really know the full story and keep pulling at the string, keep learning more and more. But even then, like the more you learn, the more you realize things are complex. What do you think about as a small tangent? Um, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, trial going on. The quick pause, then resume next week.
So again, this is one of those situations where, you know, I have very limited information, so I'm also not sitting there watching the trial.
Yeah, have you watched any of it?
Little bits of it. It's like I know that if I go there, then I'm going to want to watch it all.
Yeah, it's good.
I know.
Because
I really.
it's raw human relationships at its most toxic and its most deep also because you can tell there's love, probably still there's love, which is the interesting thing. They probably still love each other even though they hate each other. And like there's a lot of lying going on. It looks like it's Amber Heard lying to my foolish eyes. It seems like she's lying nonstop, but you know, I want to know the full story. We'll never get to know it, but you see this raw like post-mortem on a relationship on the low there that was clearly passionate. There was clearly something deep of a connection there. And it just, that's the sad thing about love. It can destroy you as much as it can uplift you. So
It can be also used to destroy people.
yeah, you can manipulate and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. So people who feel strongly are, I think, particularly vulnerable. Yeah, it's hard to talk about because I've dipped into like a podcast or something where other people were discussing bad eating in like a pop culture way, and they're analyzing it, and it's so annoying to listen to. So I'm like, oh my god, that's totally wrong. That's totally wrong. Well, if they only do this, well, I have nope, that's wrong. So you know,
Yeah.
listening to other people analyzing my situation or my psychology when they don't have all the information has been really frustrating.
There's
But
a difference.
I did.
There's a difference because the world doesn't know much about you except for that documentary.
Right.
There's a lot more information about both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and the trial is revealing the real people. This
Right.
is so interesting.
But I haven't watched it all.
Okay, but
I
there's
didn't
a
listen
difference
to
between
it.
a documentary and like a raw human being
Exactly. This is a
sitting
trial.
there. You can see the body language. It's so interesting that I think you can tell the difference between a person who is full of shit and not.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but on top of this, they're actors too, which is very annoying.
Right, exactly.
Because like I don't know if they're putting it. It sure as hell looks like Amber Heard is putting on like a soap opera act. Soap opera meaning like really bad acting and lies. But
I would say all of these things are really hard. People would say about me, I don't look like a victim, and I don't mind you interrupting me because Andrew Huberman said that means you're interested in the conversation. He said it was a good thing. So you don't have to apologize.
I think
Interrupt me. I keep coming up, but I keep thinking of you.
that's one of the things that Andrew told me that I'm like, are you sure? Because it just doesn't seem like an asshole thing to do.
I guess it depends on the context. If we're in a business meeting and somebody, you know, talks over you to kind of make their point heard, but if it's a one-on-one situation, well, it's not. Anyway,
Forever.
but so a long time ago, I listened to there was a audio call from an audio that was released of a taped argument between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and I don't remember why, like which one of them had taped it and if they knew it was being taped. But it was like an hour and a half, and I listened to it almost like you would listen to a podcast where I was doing other things, like being in my apartment, and I was fascinated listening to it. So and it's interesting too because it was just the audio, not so you're not looking at their body language, which can be completely misleading. And there was another podcast where they talked about how judges make the worst decisions on whether or not somebody deserves, you know, parole or to be released on bail when they see the person in person versus if they're just looking at the information on paper. So I think body language and those kinds of things can actually be misleading. Or we think that like by looking somebody in the eye, we'll know if they're lying or not. But the skilled liars are able to stressed out, mortified. I'm probably doing all the things that we do when we lie because it's stressful for me. Whereas they don't have those things. So I think that, they could, for example, I think that they could pass a lie detector test. They also don't have like a startle response. So the activity in their brain, like if you and I watch something graphic and tragic on TV or watch something happen, like things would happen in our brains that don't happen in the brains of sociopaths. So they don't react to things in the same way that we do.
Again,
But that makes
you
sense.
keep assuming I'm not a sociopath. I didn't say I'm not a sociopath. This assumption you keep making is very interesting. Then why did I murder all those people? Let's get back to the, what were we talking about?
Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So the,
Oh, yes,
the audio that I heard made me, without knowing anything else, made me very inclined to be Team Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Based on that audio.
Yeah. Well, that's how the people are feeling about this whole attraction. By the way, I do think it's a very healthy thing to do in a relationship is to record each other for months at a time. Every time we fight, that just seems like a very sarcasm. I don't understand how that because they both record each other. It's just look. I suppose you could look back at all human religions and be like, this was ridiculous. What was I doing? But when you're in it,
Right. I wondered that too. Like who made the recording and why? And did they both know about it? That it was being recorded?
sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. All I know is just the poetry of Johnny Depp's speaking and sort of movement about the whole thing. It's interesting. It makes you wonder what's real. Maybe this is whole. Maybe they're both in love and this is like a troll that they played on the world. I don't know. It makes me wonder what's real at all. Because you have to remember they're actors.
Yeah, I don't think he would have filed the lawsuit.
No, I mean I'm joking. Yes.
No, I know, but no, I mean, my point is,
Yes. Yeah.
if somebody was trying to make the argument that like he's the abuser and that he's lying, he's full of shit, it sort of doesn't make sense that he would have filed the lawsuit unless he's trying to have this all come out in the open because he believes he's in the right. Again, I have no
I
idea.
agree with you. As a fan of love and human nature, I appreciate the fact that they went through this. I know it's probably extremely painful, but it's fascinating to watch human relationships be presented in such a raw way. And they made me realize how rare it is to get a glimpse like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons I like that book, Confessions of a Sociopath, also is it's female who's writing it, and I think statistically men are more likely to be sociopaths. Maybe not. I mean, these are all things where a lot of times there exist statistics that would be inherently hard to get. So who knows? But I think that people tend to think of sociopaths more as men, and then which probably gives female sociopaths the advantage in that people are less likely to, like the Elizabeth Holmes, like people who are really manipulative and really good at it. And part of how they're able to succeed is that people don't understand their motives. That people will assume that people behave rationally, even if rationally means it's like Anthony Strange's. It would have made more sense if he had gotten all this money out of me and put it in an overseas account and then ditched me and got on a plane to Mexico. Like everybody would understand that more. Whereas, the way things happened and he dragged me around the country and like what were we doing in Tennessee and then why did like nothing really makes any sense. But and also all the things that he did to me and had me do, it was as if all of those things together only make sense if his primary goal was to maximally destroy me and also make it like have me burn all my bridges and make it so I'll never recover. And when you read a book like that, you understand that that's what he wanted. Like that's his life.
So can you
It's like
explain
a
that
game.
further? Like what do you think?
It's about power and it's a game.
Do you think he understood the long-term
motivations are just different. So, you know, he spent a year incarcerated because he never got out on bail. So then he got out.
He's out of prison now.
He got out before I went in to serve my time, which was purely, you know, so like psychologically, I had to try really hard not to be infuriated and. But anyway, so I think for him, you know, the consequence of spending time in jail is still like an inconvenience. You know, it's just like the same. So he wouldn't feel, if you're not capable of being emotionally hurt, then you're, you know, you have immense power because you can go around and do things and people can't hurt you. It's like a superpower.
And he did this for people who are not familiar, I guess people struggling with it.
Yes.
Yes. I think it was in the documentary that his, I guess, ex-wife somewhere else, Florida. Sorry. Strong word.
Like when there's the weirdest story about, you know, people eating Thai sauce and then doing crazy, it's like it's always in Florida. So I feel like whenever crazy, but to me it makes sense that he would have spent time in Florida before, and that's where. And I mean that on an insult on him. I also like she's an amazing person. So it's like it's him that I'm making the like Florida weird.
Yes, he would agree with her, like I did. Well, jumping off is one of the things that was disturbing and misleading is the ending of the documentary. And the ending had a phone call of you and talking to what how did it how many times did you talk with it since you got out of prison, and what did you talk about, and why is that important to you? That section of the audience.
My issue with it also was that it was deliberately misleading because what was really infuriating about it. And then also it was like there were things, one major thing that was incorrect that I think helped allow people to make an incorrect conclusion at the end was in the film it talks about, I say something about how my accountant made a joke about if I married him, he could easily transfer me money without tax consequences. And then the film has me saying something like, you know, and then within 24 hours we were married. But that's like audio from here and audio from here spliced together.
But they made it seem like
I married him because it was like he could give me money, and that wasn't the case.
So you're part mastermind, some kind of scheme that involved money transfer, you got married, and that kind of
right. Or if nothing else, I was trying to get money. That's why I married him. So which is absurd because again, you know, New York is full of legitimate people with loads of money. If I really wanted to marry somebody for money in New York, it wouldn't be that hard.
Which is so annoying.
But anyway, it was just a deliberate making it seem like my intention was, you know, to marry him for his fictitious money.
Okay, so that's one thing.
And either way,
Let's go to that ending thing because we're on that topic. Because when you got out of prison, you know, what the film implies is that whatever, there's a small aspect of your mind that still wants to continue a relationship with Anthony.
yeah.
And not just that, but there's still flirtation and that kind of body implied. Like, we got the world, like, at our fingertips, we're playing. So, I mean, one of the exciting things about being, like, a couple that's fucking with the world, that's getting away with something, is that there's all these powerful forces that want to catch you in a crime and you keep getting away with it. That's exciting.
In some romance world, it could be, although
not in this case.
right. And also, I always have to keep reminding people like get away with that because I lost everything, and all these people lost other, you know, people I cared about lost a lot. My mother lost a lot. but I lost everything too.
Yeah, your restaurant,
And all my,
your dreams.
yeah, my reputation, my stuff, my home, you know, ending up with millions of dollars of debt. Like, it's not even like I lost it all and then it's a clean slate. It's like I lost it all and now I have this like giant boulder of, or like this wobbly, unclear how to, like, yeah. So when people say,
Well, it's just the
God,
thing.
away with something, I'm always like, oh, wait, what?
I know.
Destroying my life and ending up in debt? Because it's not even like, you can't even sort of point to like, as if I was trying to do something and then oops, that happened. It's like, there's nothing that logically makes sense if somebody was trying to um, decipher my, you know, whatever motives I might have had.
Yeah, you didn't walk away from the explosion. You were inside the explosion. Okay. With that said, the movie implied, and so I mean, it's interesting to ask, not just in clarifying the movie, but just as a human being, you're out of prison, he's out of prison. There was, there was that toxic connection, but it was there, and there was a depth to it. Toxic connection could be pretty deep.
Yeah.
So, what was the conversation like, and how often did you talk to them?
Well, we don't speak anymore. And that call at the end was
I read G-Chat.
recorded. Was recorded on, like, I recorded the call and gave it to them. You know, so I was like deliberately recording him. It's not like I was caught on a hot mic. Like, I made that call.
Part of the
I recorded him intentionally. I was trying to get him to repeat some of like the kookier things he would say about like his meat suit or some of the weird like the things about something not being real. The more like fantastical things. I was trying to get him to repeat those things. It was probably like a 40-minute call, which I mean, it's actually on my phone. I still have it. I haven't gone back to listen to it, but
you ever think of publishing that whole thing?
oh yeah. Oh, I think about publishing everything. My entire journal. All
I should publish that call and then just publish it. That'd
Yeah.
be fun.
No, I want to publish like a lot of stuff. He took all these videos of me also that they used a couple of clips of, and I would, they're also on my phone. I would publish them all. I would publish everything. In particular,
If
because
you release that, would you feel good?
yes, I plan to do that eventually. If all of that material would be really useful to psychologists or people studying it. So to the extent that it would help other people understand what happened. Which I
Well,
think would
he's
be
still out there.
meaningful. Yeah, he's still out there doing weird shit with his clean slate. I get a little annoyed about that. He's got the clean slate.
Well, he didn't have a restaurant. He didn't have a persona. Does he have any public persona or no? Or we don't know.
He got booted off of Twitter. Elon will put him back on.
Is that a passive aggressive thing?
No, not at all. I find that whole conversation really, really interesting.
Whether to put somebody like Anthony back on Twitter.
Well, no, I think, because I used to always think, like, if only everybody had to identify as themselves on Twitter. And you could have, like, a parody account.
Yeah.
Or, like Leon has an account, but it's very clear that it's me behind it. Or sometimes there's, like, Devin Nunez, Cow. Like, so people have parody accounts. But if we could identify who it is, then a lot of,
Why did he get booted off of Twitter?
I don't know. But I used to, so in the last few years, I would periodically, probably like once a month, maybe more, I would like look at his Twitter just to kind of see like, well, where is he? And, like just to see like, what is he up to? And I figured out, I could tell from the photographs that he moved to California. And I think he might have told me one of the last times I spoke to him that he was going to move to California. But, and I also screen grabbed a lot of stuff that he put on Twitter. And he put these creepy videos of himself on Twitter at the beginning of COVID. I screen grabbed those. And then one day I went and like, he was, account was suspended. And then I kept going back and it's like been suspended ever since. So he might have started a new account and I don't know what it is. Probably, was going to go meet him, and I said, and was nervous about it, and I said, um, he's going to be really likable. Like, you're going to like him. He's probably going to like figure out what you're interested in, talk sports, talk whatever it is that he figures out quickly that you're interested in. He's going to be really nice. He's going to seem like a nice guy. And that person later got back to me and was like, you're exactly right.
So yeah, that's the sociopath thing, right?
Yeah.
Be extremely careful. But inside a relationship, that's even more dangerous. Like,
So I think that part of the reason I spoke to him was entirely self-serving and strategic after the fact.
or
Well, even before I knew there was ever going to be a documentary, I spoke to him. And I knew how dangerous it was because I knew that in a situation like this, you're supposed to have no contact, which makes sense, and I understand why, which makes it extra tragic when people have kids with a sociopath or in a narcissistic abusive relationship. If you have kids, then you're tethered, which is tragic. But
why are you supposed to avoid conversations? Because you can get pulled right back
so you
in.
have no contact. Yeah, because they'll continue abuse or you'll be vulnerable to them being able to pull you back in. So I knew that to be the case.
But why was it so certain? Why did you talk from anything?
Because he was getting out, he was going to be out free out in the open while I was going to be locked up at Rikers for 3.5 months. And the one thing that, if his motivation was to destroy me, then what else could he do to really, hammer that last nail in the coffin? That would be Leon. And so he would have known that Leon would be staying with my mother. He knows where he spent a lot of time at her house. He knows where she lives. It would be super easy for him to just drive up there, wait for her to let him out. And then, because out in the country, he can be off leash. And all we have to do is kind of whistle, call him over, and he could take him away and do whatever. So I was completely, gripped with that fear.
Not fear for yourself, but fear for Leon.
Well, I was going to be at least safe from him, but I was going to be locked away. So,
Right, yeah,
right.
sure.
So
I got it.
I would be powerless to do anything, and he would have free reign to go destroy me further by, taking or hurting me out. And then when he got out, I still had unfollowed him from my own account, but Leon had never unfollowed him. So I was looking at, I was looking at his account,
Can't
and
just love it. Can't just say because Joe has he has a conqueror dog too. I just love when people do that. It's so great. Because I actually pretend, in my mind, for some reason, I do think Leon is an account. Like, I don't, you forget that there's a human behind it. You're like, oh, okay, cool.
yeah,
I love when people do that. Continue, so Leon did not follow him, but
so I was able to go back and look at his Twitter, and he sorry, quickly got a phone, but he very quickly started tweeting right after he got out, and I was kind of fascinated because I didn't know what to expect, what he was going to be saying, and then he started saying things that I could tell were directed at me, little things that only I would know, random things, things that were like the equivalent of an inside joke that you have. So he was posting things like that, and there's so many things going on at once. So another thing that would have, in a twisted but I think understandable way, in sort of a sick way that I was fully aware of, is that here I am having gone through this completely messed up thing that now I'm in trouble for. Everybody's looking at and nobody understands, right? And so there was this unfortunate situation of the only person who understands what I went through is the person who put me through it, right? So
were you also just a little bit seeking closure of some kind?
probably a lot, but also with the awareness that I probably wasn't going to same way that, which is why, um, I was able to later on, like in the context of recording those calls, I was able to talk to him in this detached way because I know he doesn't give a shit. That like he doesn't give any shits about what he did to my mother or me or anybody or anything. Just doesn't care. So he's certainly not going to care if I, he's never going to say like I'm sorry or I did a bad thing or like he's not going to be affected. Like if I yelled and screamed at him, that would just be frustrating for me, and he would actually probably be gratified by that. So
that gave you that empowered you being cold and sort of
yes, and I had a
distant.
prior experience where I had to do the same thing. Where like if you're able to be very cold and not allow somebody to push your buttons, then you're taking away their power, and then that feels empowering or feels like we're claiming a little bit of your power. So in my talking to him, I always had a reason. Like there was always like I didn't want to hurt Leon, or I wanted information, or I wanted to know where he was. I'd rather let him think that, maybe he can still manipulate me one day or whatever. It was like safer to keep that there than to not know where he was, and if I was going to like be walking Leon and turn the corner and he's standing there, like it's like if there's a crazy murderer out on the loose, you'd rather know where they are than have no idea. So there are a lot of different reasons.
Why does it upset you? Why was it wrong to have that audio clip at the end of the documentary? Like, what did it?
Well, because it implied all kinds of things that were completely not true, and it also just didn't make sense, and it confused people. And so
for people who haven't watched it, spoiler alert, because they played the clip of. Sorry, I don't even remember what was said, but it was kind of.
that last what we spoke about.
Yeah, what was the?
I know. I only watched. Like, I still haven't watched it. I only watched the film once.
Yeah.
While people were looking at me for my reaction, and I was crying, and it was really weird and strange and surreal. And I haven't gone back to watch it again. I feel like I'm just going to get more annoyed, but I will eventually. But and when the ending happened, I immediately blurted out like, I hate that ending. But I sort of assumed a lot of people saw it for what it was. They saw that it was like the director doing a weird thing, and that it was kind of just weird and off, and like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it seems
but they didn't.
but so it was basically you joking around, like flirting.
It made it seem like as if we're still friendly.
And there's more to come. It's almost like there's going to be a Bad Vegan 2.
Right. Or, yeah, and then also, it made it seem like, if I was laughing with him, that I don't take anything seriously, that I don't take what happened seriously, or there's like all.
Doing remorse.
Exactly.
Yeah, and after that, he goes to credit for his Wild World, which is a great song.
Yeah,
it was a great reason to Wild World.
I never got to hear that because the version I watched didn't have the end credits, but I knew that they used that song at the end, and paid a lot for it.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, what is up this song? Did you ever say what was the darkest thing about yourself that you discovered from the book?
Oh,
We
no, right. We started talking about, exactly, yeah, about the G chat, and I think it was, I guess it was trying to understand how I was able to be sarcastic and make jokes at his expense while all that stuff was going on.
So what's that? Have you figured out what that means about you?
No, it just was interesting to look at, and also I think, I have a tendency sometimes to be sort of like jokingly hyperbolic or sarcastic, and it's gotten me into trouble. One time I got locked up in the Harlem Psych Ward of my hyperbole and sarcasm and like
After that,
sort of
you want to tell the story of
lost
that.
in translation error.
That's a heck of a lost in translation error.
Yeah,
Did you say something funny to the therapist?
it was yeah. I mean, I was sort of making jokes about how bad I was feeling, but in a hyperbolic way. And so then suddenly somebody told somebody, and then the lost in translation, and then they were worried that I might kill myself. And then did a wellness check, and then tried to call me, and I was in the shower, so I answered the phone. So then somebody called the police to do a wellness check on me.
Things just escalated.
And then not knowing that if I had handled it the right, if I had immediately, if I'd sort of understood what was going on and handled it the right way immediately, I probably could have gotten out of it. But they err on the side of taking me to the hospital no matter what. And I didn't know that. And it also,
So you really leaned into the joke by going to the hospital.
I didn't. It's sort of one of those situations that was both comical and tragic because it would actually make a really good. It's weird how I do this sometimes. Like it would make a really good scene in a film version.
Who would play you in the film?
I don't know. There's a thing being made that's
Sharon Stone?
because
Have you cast the scene yet?
no, but there's a thing being made that I have nothing to do with, which is frustrating and weird.
What film about you?
About like somebody's making a fictionalized drama, and it's frustrating because for all kinds of obvious reasons, it's like annoying and
You can go anyway.
they could go any way.
If you like the bad guy.
And that really don't get a bajillion things wrong. And there are also a bunch of people like profiting off of it and like thanks guys. You know, so it's infuriating for all kinds of reasons.
Do you know who's playing for the actors?
No, I don't even like. I just don't like. I'll inevitably know, but I don't really want to know. The whole thing's just annoying. And also, I've always people ask me this all the time, and I always thought because of the way everything that happened was such a kind of a slow build, and there was so much nuance, and it's kind of really hard to understand that it could only really be done well in like a Breaking Bad type of series, like a long series, where like you would be taken through these kind of gut wrenching, icky, slow build things, and then that would make it all make sense. Like that, if it was done that way, it could be done accurately. But the reason why I think, so I made these stupid jokes, and then somebody did a wellness check, and or asked the police to do it well, but when they knocked on my door and came in, it was like a repeat of getting arrested. So I sort of weirdly flashed back to that, and then burst into tears, which isn't the appropriate response if you're trying to diffuse if you're trying to discourage the people coming to do the wellness check from taking you to the hospital, starting to cry is not the right reaction.
Well, the thing is, I mean, that there is, it's funny, but it could be also a joke. The joke, the best jokes are grounded in truth, pain. In this case, pain.
Yeah.
Right? So there,
And
you know, have you ever, if I may ask, considered suicide?
Yes.
What?
Well, I'm kind of a wimp, so I'm afraid of all of the gruesome ways. But one of the things I remember doing is sort of hoarding medication, which I had when around the time and before he took me away, because I wanted the safety of an out. And
But around that time, so when that's the road trip, right before the road trip, you're
around that time, yeah.
hoarding medication.
Like if I could get my hands on any sort of weird medication, I would kind of hold on to it. And
All the chaos.
but I think I knew that it would be hard to do it that way.
That you were
I think I
thinking.
thought about it, but I never.
And that really you're thinking about taking on life. What gave you hope? What gave you sort of the business, the restaurant that you give so much of yourself to is lost. You're lying to everybody. You're in the hole financially. You're being psychologically trapped, manipulated.
Go kill myself now.
Well, you're still there. Please don't.
See, I made a joke about it. Like that's
There you go. But it's always there. It's the Albert Camus, says you basically always have to be aggressively looking for a reason to live. Otherwise,
what's the point?
otherwise it's easy to go the other way. Because why live is a very good question. But anyways, it's by way of hope, by way, it's a dark time. It's a dark time. You get to look back. What gave you just strength?
I think that it just just having like a sort of relentless optimism. And I think too that sometimes people assume that suicide is the result of circumstances, which maybe in some cases it is, but I think one of the things that book explains well is that very often it doesn't have anything to do with circumstances, it's just the pain,
Which one?
the darkness visible. Because people like to criticize. So when somebody commits suicide, people will very often criticize them like it's a selfish act. If they have a family, which most people do, but especially if they have kids. And I think that, everybody's quick to sort of call the person who kills themselves selfish. And I think that the type of pain that one is experiencing that leads to that is something that most people, and I don't, like people don't understand, but it's not a selfish thing. It's just like quite literally becomes intolerable from what I understand.
And it can hit you. It can be slow, it can be fast.
Yes.
That pain.
Yeah. So I think because for me it was more just my circumstances were so crappy. But also I had an awareness that even in Rikers I knew how wildly lucky I was to have, family, a support system, opportunities, and like I'll always be okay one way or another. So I felt lucky that I have that. But, also I went, the shame of everything that happened and, will I ever be able to crawl out from under it and rebuild something? I don't know. So there were certainly times where, especially when I would learn something new, like reading the emails between Mr. Fox and my mother, I just wanted I wanted like a meteor to hit my particular spot on the earth right then and there, just to take a
So she was motivating your mom too. Because your mom helped you and will give money.
Yeah, and it was really a good test. So, and I feel like it's my fault.
What's your mom say about this whole situation? No, what's that?
We don't talk about it as much as one would think that we would, because I feel sickening, because I feel like it's my fault, and I think she also feels sick over it, and so we don't talk about it as much as one might think. But sometimes I've had to ask questions in the process of writing the book, and then there are other things where like I could ask the questions, but I just don't want to, because I don't want to put her through that, or it's not really necessary to ask the questions, but there are things that I'm curious about. But
Well, you once on that road trip. Wow. What was that like? Where'd you guys go first? Vegas? You drove? New York? Where?
it was a series of stops at like motel type places.
When I did some of my road trips up to Boston, I drove across the United States with no destination.
I had always wanted to do that, and now, I feel like one of those things sort of like ruined for me. a lot of
Now you can always be quiet.
yeah, I could. But now, yeah. Yeah, I did think about like how one day if I just went to a bookstore or something that I imagine was Leon and I in a car. And
It has to be different than man, book tours. They not, if you're not careful, can suck the soul out of a human being. I think you have to do like a Hunter S. Thompson film book tour where you miss a bunch of things. You got people off of that before. But anyway,
or I just, what I worry about is that I just be feeling terrible in some way and not being up for it.
up for the trip or off the speaking.
Just for like a certain type of experience. I think I'm always afraid of that and committing to things like if it involves going to a big public event.
Yeah, I think you have to be very careful with podcasts. I'm always surprised when people just jump on podcasts they don't really listen to and just do a lot of podcasts and a book tour. First of all, financially, it doesn't make any sense. Like, especially going on small podcasts, like, what's the benefit? Like, really, you want to go on just a couple of big podcasts if you're actually a fan. Like, it's really important. People don't, like, they don't understand power. I mean, maybe you just don't understand podcasts. Maybe you understand the podcast is like the biggest thing I love listening to is when a guest is a fan. They understand the culture, style, the sound, feel, of the podcast. They understand the other person. They feel the pain, the hopes of the other person. The weird, like, quirk for the other person. It makes people much better listening. And ultimately, the appearance itself is not just enough to sell the book. You're selling yourself as a human being. And that requires having chemistry levels.
Yeah, I agree.
And podcasts are good. It's often like you're giving a lot to people. Anyway, road trip. You don't remember the motels and the hotels along the way?
Well, there are a lot of things where like I'll remember things that happened, but I don't remember where it was.
You could go without visiting.
I assume he must have known ahead of time, but he made it seem like oh, funny we ended up in Vegas. Funny how that happened. But now when I see all the places that we stopped, they were all places that, where there were casinos. So there's a lot more casinos around the country than I knew. And they're yeah, but I think that it's not so I think that regular people have gambling addictions and it's a horrible, tragic thing that can destroy their lives. And I know people regular people can have a gambling addiction, which is explained in the way that addictions are explained. For him, I don't think it was so much an addiction as like a thrill seeking, because he could win money and lose money and he didn't really care. Whereas somebody who has an actual addiction and then all normal human emotions, would either be elated and relieved or devastated, or lose a lot of money. And for him, he didn't really care. Again, it didn't work for him.
Like what was going through like, would you be on the run? Would you feel like you won the run?
No.
You know you won the run?
No. I didn't know that, basically the restaurant was operating and he took me away, and then, like, people weren't paid and it all sort of fell apart.
And you weren't checking your stuff or anything like that.
No, and then he had my phone and my email. I did later on I got a brand new phone with like an empty phone with no existing numbers in it or whatnot. And so that I could communicate when I went to the grocery store or something like that.
What was the reason you got the phone? Like, what was the narrative story that you were taking over your phone? Was it, I mean, like how did you allow that to happen? Or maybe a better way to ask this. How did he make that happen?
Well, I was listening to it before, because before he was always checking my phone, which was wildly infuriating, and I feel like,
I think he fixed it by giving him a
well, I mean, the conditions were different later on, but in some sense, I didn't want my phone because everything, like, I was in a state of shock, and it was just like, take it, it's fine, like, I give up, like, I guess I've given up, and so, yeah, I've given up, there was no, like, I wasn't gonna fight back on anything. Before, when he would take my phone and look for it, it was infuriating, and so forced me to get used to it, and this is again something that was been helpful to understand, because like they condition you to not react negatively to things that you normally react negatively to. And like if I was in a relationship, like if somebody, I would never ever look in somebody's phone, and if somebody did that to me, I would be like, goodbye. So I'm pretty sensitive about that, and so it was very infuriating when he would take the phone and look at it, and it got to the point where not only did I feel like everything I said or wrote or emailed digitally or whatnot would be read, but it got me to the point of feeling like I was being watched all the time in a non-learnable way.
Yeah, what were some of the, you didn't mention some of the documentary touched on some of them. What are some of the fantastical stories? So you mentioned that it might help make Neon immortal. What?
All of that was always really vague, intentionally, like a lot of what we talked about was always very vague, but a lot of that stuff was very vague, and again, like, just slowly over time, and a lot of those things too are things that, conveniently you kind of can't disprove. So it's almost like, people believe in God, or religious people believe certain things. So one could argue, why is it that much crazier for me to been open to the idea that, maybe we do live forever in some way, when a lot of religious people have similar beliefs.
So one of the other thing is she was maybe correct me, but reincarnated or something like that, or like
he acted like he had lived many lifetimes and had all kinds of wisdom from having lived all these prior lifetimes and being aware of it.
So was that, and it was vague, but it was somehow believable, or is it just like part of the charm? Like what? How do you not call bullshit?
I know.
But not necessarily bullshit. I understand when you snitch in whatever way, but like going on a little more detail. Like put it off for later. Assume that those details will come later.
Right. He's a mentalist or a believist named Darren Brown. And it was on a Joe Rogan podcast, I think, Joe interviewed Darren Brown. His Sam Harris interviewed him. I got really intrigued. And then I was looking for other podcasts, or maybe Joe interviewed him like right after. I may have gone looking for it, but anyway, it was in the conversation with Joe where Darren explained he's somebody I would love to meet, a mentalist, an illusionist. They understand a lot of the ways in which the mind can be manipulated. So I feel like they would, if they looked at everything about my situation, they would be able to understand better how he was able to get me to believe things or go along with things. Darren Brown is very fascinating what he does. He really seems like a very kind person and very open about it. And when you're talking to Joe, he said this thing that, and I use this quote in my book, and again, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but it's like, he said something about how we want to believe the lie because we'd rather believe that it's something amazing than just that ugly and pathetic a lie. And I, whatever he said was said in a much better way. But the point is, like, that's, and so he was explaining it in the context of the way that an illusionist or whatever they're called is able to pull off certain things, which is that they're sort of, you know, somebody, it's about somebody who's watching and watch that person sort of leverage people's tendency to want to believe that something amazing and cool is about to happen versus like this is just a really ugly, pathetic lie. So I think that a lot of the things that Mr. Fox that he put forward, I couldn't understand it from the perspective of it being a lie. It just seemed too weird and crazy. So I think that this happens sometimes where you believe somebody because it seems so weird that they would lie about it. I think there's somebody that, or it's been said sometimes that like the more fantastical the lie, the more believable it is because you don't believe that somebody would tell that lie. And I think something also that Mr. Fox, people like him are capable of doing is going out and lying in very brazen ways and then people would be terrified to use that kind of also makes it more believable. So somebody could go out on a world stage and lie and not kind of feel weird about that or even knowing that it's a lie that you pointed out as being a lie. And then there's also the layer of what extent is this person in some way also delusional themselves and sort of believing their lies. People have asked me that and I think it's the same thing. To what extent do you believe some of the stuff people are saying? And I think probably there was some sort of delusional aspect, almost like he was sort of halfway aware of playing his own sort of virtual reality game, you know, like he was using some kind of metaverse in his brain.
You think he believes?
In some way, yeah.
What,
He wanted to, you know, he wanted to be his own, like, he wanted to be a superhero. He never built anything or created anything or accomplished anything in his life. Yet, you know, sort of took in his own brain to just turn himself into like a movie superhero. But, yeah.
What about the Navy SEAL thing? Did that ever get resolved? You know, the lie that he said that he
I don't know if he said he was Navy SEAL or that he implied that he worked with CIA or then it was like he worked with Black Ops that, you know, is by definition under the radar, right? So, I mean, that's obviously a huge red flag now going forward. It's like if somebody, first of all, if somebody tells you that information pretty quickly, that's itself a red flag. But, I mean,
cross that off by me.
But, you know, conveniently, if you say in some world he actually did work for like Blackwater and those places, I wouldn't be able to call someplace and verify it. Anyway, so I think that in some psychological way that I don't understand, he probably did in some way halfway exist in this world where he was this, you know, like fighter, and he would say things like, because of people like me, that people like me sleep at night, which is probably a lie not to believe that. I feel like a lot of things were
Benedict said that.
is that really a lie not to believe?
What kind of movie?
You know what would happen at Rikers is when these things would happen where one of us would think of something and you're like, oh, who was that actor in that movie and that thing? No, and so what we do is like somebody would be on the phone and you'd be like, hey, what are you going to do? Can you ask them to look up on their phone? Like, can you just ask people on the phone? Or somebody would go make a call. And, you know, you have to call somebody and ask them to Google the cast of a movie or something like that. I think you would find jail. Don't ever get arrested or try not to, but I think you would find jail fascinating.
Oh, I always wanted to, yeah. Prison. There's a lot of elements to it now. I think questions about it, but I feel like I can get a lot of reading done.
I got a ton of reading done.
Yeah. I remember now. People attribute this sure if George Orwell ever said it, but it's something like there's a lot of different variations. But we sleep safely at night because rough men stand ready to visit violence on those who would harm us. And there's a lot of variations of this. But basically, our entire society depends on bad motherfuckers who are willing to
Right.
fight to protect our freedoms, to protect our well-being. And one of the things about the United States is because we're surrounded by water, we don't get to see the violence that's required in part to protect the sovereignty of nations. You mentioned that I would not to go to prison, but that I enjoy my time there. Let me ask you, by the way, I love prison.
You would find it fascinating. I don't, because it's like still kind of too soon. But
Well, how would you spend 3.5 months at Rikers? How was that? How was your experience? How's the food?
not good. But Rikers was when I got to Rikers. I was arrested. I spent I think about 10 days in a Tennessee, small town Tennessee jail. Taking board is also the weirdest place on earth. Yes, it's the town where I was arrested. In the film, I told them, you have to go to prison board. You have to go there. You have to go there. And I think I was pushing them because it was going to potentially be the end of the season. It's like a summertime or it's a tourist destination, and it's so bizarre and weird and trippy that it doesn't even seem real.
Carnival happening right now.
Exactly. I think I say that in my intro that it's carnival-esque and trippy and weird.
Clown walking around.
Not necessarily clowns, but there is a video on YouTube that because I got this chapter right when we arrived at the board, and I'll never forget, although I have forgotten, but I remember being like weirdly, like felt like we had entered a different universe, driving down the strip and just looking at everything on either side. And I was wishing that I could remember in more detail, like the names of places or what was there, because I wanted to describe it in this chapter. And I was like, I wish there was like a video of somebody going down the street, showing us on one side and the other side. And I was like, probably is, and there is on YouTube. Like I found it and I watched the whole thing.
How does it call it?
Okay. So that's the town that I went to jail in.
Oh, right.
In Tennessee. So the food there and some of the conditions. The food, when I got to, then I was extradited and transferred to Rikers. And when I got to Rikers, I felt like it was like the Four Seasons in comparison. So, and I really kind of appreciated a lot of things about New York when I got to Rikers, even though there are a lot of things that are scary about it. Yes, and in a very kind of almost poetically way. The dorm room where I was when I was there for 2.5 months was one of the ones things that I had. So I could go across and look out the window and see the whole Manhattan skyline. And again, so Rikers isn't like a long-term prison. Most people at Rikers are awaiting trial, and they've been arrested but not convicted. And then if you're convicted and you're sentenced to less than a year, then you put on a Victorian form and you go upstairs to different dorms. If you're convicted and sentenced to more than a year, you're sent to one of the upstairs prisons. So most of the people at Rikers are there in transition. They've been arrested but not they've been arrested, but not convicted or awaiting trial, then you could be perfectly innocent and you're stuck there. And that happens to a lot of people. Or you could be arrested over some kind of comparatively petty thing or nonviolent thing and stuck there because you don't have as little as $500 to pay bail, which is completely messed up and unjust. And I think most reasonable people agree that it's unjust. But I think when you're there, you see those people and you see kind of the anguish. And whether, I mean, I have no idea if they're guilty of what, I really don't know what people are there for, or what the situation is being watched. So, that way, you're kind of powerless there. You have very little contact with the outside world, and they don't call. So, for people who have kids and jobs and apartments, like one by one, it's overlocked, or their kids are not being looked after by their abusive husband or something like that. And so, watching that wrenching, and then also knowing that the only reason they're trying to get out is because of $1,000, from people $500. So there's all these tragic cases that the nurse while I was there. I mean, if I'd had any money, I would have been wanting to bail people out left and right. And then in some cases, you go to the nurse or really loud, and the bail is $500 now. But I wish I had a bail or just wanted to bail her out. So because I'm pretty sensitive to sound, being able to hear another breed. Yeah, there are areas there themselves, but a lot of the areas there are rooms with 50 beds. So, and there were about 3 feet apart from each other. So during COVID, there's certainly no social distancing. And that just felt kind of sickening because so many people are there for non-violent things or drug addiction related or mental health issues.
Haven't spent that time there for 3.5 months. How that change? Like what did that have an effect on your mind?
On my mind, personally, I think I was surprised at how well I had adapted, and then how I was able to, and then I think I took it to the next level. And one of the books somebody sent me was The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, and very much about like observing your mind. That kind of helped take it to the next level. So it'd be like trying to meditate in the middle of a circus or even crazy circumstances, because you're never alone. There's nowhere to be alone, and there's always fighting, there's chaos. Yeah, but I never felt terrified there. You know, when my friends look back, it's a scary place because they don't have cameras in their in the bathroom. So that's just one needs to watch out there. And I did one of my friends, one of the best friends that she did get beat up a bit in the bathroom one day. A lot of weird shit happened to him. But if you're interested in human behavior and psychology, and it can be fascinating to sit there and watch.
Same thing, like you might enjoy living from that perspective, like just to get to watch human nature. That's what I don't want to say like driven, but like open your eyes.
Right, and there's a lot of beauty there as well. I mean, people being love and definition of love, but people being, you know, incredibly generous and kind to each other. People singing at night. just a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of, hilarious stuff. It's just it's all there. Like the tragic things, interesting things. A lot of people with mental health issues, which is can be difficult to witness.
So very different transition. Ask me this, but somebody wrote Elaine Maxwell. I believe she spent approximately 500 days in isolation. So it's a very different present, right? But when you think about her case, when you think about her journey, her mother, her family, she says that she's a victim. Not the boss.
I think this is an especially fascinating because, and I have listened to podcasts about these situations. And there was one that was more focused on her by Vicky Ward that I would definitely listen to. Vicky Ward is a journalist. I think she's written an article about Jeffrey Epstein beginning there. She got to know Jeffrey Epstein and she knew Elaine Maxwell from being sort of part of the social circle in which they would have overlapped.
Have you ever met them? Do you remember meeting with, Jeffrey or
No, I never met them. They're also very much like the Upper East Side crowd. I did meet Harvey Weinstein once that made me have all kinds of interesting thoughts later.
at the restaurant? Or?
No, it was weird. It was out on the street. And we had this really strange interaction. And knowing what I know now, it was eerie. And also, like, he contacted me after that and made it seem like he could have done something for me, like what I had been, say he said, oh, I'm going to finance your whole expansion or something, and like, come to my, come to the hotel, and then I go to that hotel, and he's like, come up to the room, and then I'm like,
You were wondering what he
yeah, exactly. I think I would have also like a lot of compassion for those who, didn't yell at him and leave or didn't storm out. And what happens in those situations is, there's all kinds of uncertainty and always free. And then I'm probably one of the people that sit there and somehow in the moment without clarity, just instinctively feel like somehow I must have done something wrong and it's my fault and like I let him know or just being afraid and then you don't know how to deal with it until you're free. So I think that it's for me that maybe was raised differently, maybe got a lot of self-confidence or you might have reacted differently, kind of pushed them away and stormed out. But I'm probably not one of those people. But I did not ever meet perfection, but he seems very straightforward in in class. Like the way he was able to charm people, the way I could step into these roles, just teaching adult and then kind of the way he get himself into the academic crowd within Harvard and MIT, right? So he's playing a role, he's doing it so well that people, and the things that all of us and trying to say about him are just the same things that people say about, like, hear the same things over and over again, hear the same things said about those people who were taken in violence with him, is that they were, it was as if he was under a spell, if I was under a spell, it's what you hear a lot. And so it's like they have this powerful charm that's almost it's overwhelming that they overwhelm your better judgment, or they overwhelm your like normal otherwise normally like maybe always rational thoughts and overwhelm that with their charm. So, you know, when you look at things like James Madison, that was just running the homes and all these people were involved in her. And nobody really did their due diligence, so they just sort of trusted her. And Jeffrey Epstein, I think it's still clear that the guy is money, but the guy, like, he had, you know, many dollars amount of money and somehow very quickly turned over management of it to Jeffrey Epstein. And so people wonder, like, why would he do that? That makes sense. And then the other people commented about that relationship, like, it was as if he was under Jeffrey's spell. You know, observers would say, I couldn't understand it, as if he was under his spell. And so somebody observing me in the shop sort of possibly said the same thing about me. But it's very different. It wasn't all charming. Epstein was just charming, and it was probably very, very, very crafty. Given another thing that people like him do want to do is to get you somehow compromised, because then they got you. So, you know, yeah, and with Epstein, certainly, you know, he knows to have cameras everywhere. And so if you got any of these people on camera doing something compromising, and they're all very powerful people, then he's got them. And I think he's also very smart to do that, target people of both parties, so that politically, that he's able to maintain his power, like, no matter, like, you know, they wanted him to be totally exposed, because then people, a lot of people would be exposed.
Right, with that part, you know, that's all kind of conspiracy, right?
Right, we don't know that.
I believe that, you know, I tend to kind of naturally believe that to some extent, but it's also possible that straight up charisma.
I mean, he did record people, and there were recordings. So I listened to an interview with a woman who was a girl back then, maybe 15 or 16 back then. And subsequently, years later, I was able to see some of the video. I mean, I think it's a verifiable thing, but there were video cameras all over his house.
Yeah, we can see what she was used.
Right, we don't know that.
And to the degree of how many people were involved, all kinds of conspiracies around that. But the question about
Her. So I only know what I know from the infrastructure. The big word. It's one of the podcasts, the narrative podcast. So it's like an audio kind of a documentary or journalistic piece that she did and put out. I thought it was really, really well done. I think it's called Chasing the Lane. And I listened to that whole thing. I didn't intend to listen to it all. And the one stretch I listened to, I mean, it was like a weekend, and I basically just, you know, thinking and doing other things and walking on and listening to it. And I got through it. But I got really fascinated by it because I don't know, but I think I feel like I find the whole situation gut-wrenching because I think Jeffrey Epstein is straight up sociopath, like, you know, I think with her, everybody's calling her evil, and for her to enable desire of the things that she did could potentially require, one might say that it would require a lack of empathy to be able to do those things knowingly. But at the same time, I think the information that was conveyed in the report was fascinating to me because it's clear that at the very least, it's like all these things could be true. She could maybe be not enough of a good person to have, you know, horribly victimized these young girls and destroy their lives. But she could have, I feel like when I get back to saying this, she could have in some way